File with confidence at freetaxusa.com. Let's face it, doing taxes can be intimidating. You don't want to make a mistake or miss out on the biggest refund possible. Free tax.
What's going on, bro?
Nothing.
Chilling,
What are you doing?
Chilling.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
You sitting in the garage at night?
Yep. Yeah. Not every night.
Have you been enjoying the drama going on?
Yeah, it's always, yes. I always have. I think the drama is great.
You know what I just remembered? I need to take the trash down to the road, so I'll be right back. I have to take the trash.
I did that today. Today's Monday. Are we live? Oh, shit, he's gone. Oh, we are live. Can I see anywhere on this how many people are watching? Where is it? Live for 3 minutes, 37 seconds. Restream, private chat. Haldir's here. Woo! Haldir. Message from the audience will display here. I look terrible in this light. Terrible in this light. I don't think it's the light. Might be me. So he asked me have I been keeping up with the drama. Yeah, kinda, I think, but I don't know what particular bit of drama Gay Dollar has in mind. Let's see what happened. Shane Davis went to South Carolina Comic Con. It's somebody snapped a picture of Dan Fraga and Shane Davis, like face to face. And of course, they memed it. There's like some Chris Bacon drama going on that I'm not real sure about. Chris Bacon is mad at Eric July for calling the police on him and filing a report. So Chris Bacon has retaliated. What other drama am I up on? Edwin thinks that Ethan mismanaged his money and is in poor health and is not doing well. Oh, hi.
Who are you talking to? Do we have people live in the chat already? Haldir.
I don't know. Haldir. Yeah, I said, hey, Dan. I've been talking to whomever has been listening.
What were you saying?
About drama. You asked me about drama before you had to take the trash can.
Yeah, I totally just smacked myself in the eyebrow.
Ow, bro.
Let's see what happens.
Don't rub it.
We, bro, I'm still throwing away trash from when our house flooded. And I was keeping up some
that was
shit.
a while ago.
Because we got those big blue trash cans that you put at the corner of the street. You know what I'm talking about? And we got 2 of them in our house. So the second one, I'm always just filling it with random shit. So I got all these. The first people who came when our house flooded, they did a half-assed job and we fired them. But the insurance company still paid them.
Vaguely remember
so we ended up calling these other people. And so anyway, I'm still throwing away. I don't even know how we had this much stuff in our house when we did.
How does it look now? I mean, after, does it look better than it did
fine
before
now.
it flooded?
But anyway, these little slabs, like these linoleum fake wood planks, and so they're bigger than the height of the leverage of the lid. So I went to fucking lean it backwards, and that motherfucker just slapped me right in the fucking face.
Boing.
I was like, ooh.
I wish you would have filmed it. That would have been funny.
I kept my anger down.
I wish it was live on TikTok.
Slapped me right in the goddamn face, man. So before I get on creating America topics, did you hear about all that Chris Bacon drama?
Okay, yeah, that's some of what I was saying. From what I understand, Chris Bacon is very angry at Eric July for filing a police report on him for photographing his warehouse in a public parking lot or something. So somehow Matt Barr got involved in it, and Chris Bacon doxed Matt Barr's phone number. Is that right?
Yeah, to a degree. Chris Bacon has been going, I don't even know who this guy is, but he's been going on a rampage recently. Quite interesting, to be honest. But he put out Matt Barr's phone number and all this stuff.
Yeah. That's fucked up.
And I reported a couple of his tweets today. That Matt Bacon guy. Yeah, Chris Bacon, because he put Matt Barr's phone number, his mom and dad's phone number out and everything. I'm like, whoa.
Damn.
So yeah, I wasn't.
That's fucked up.
This guy's insane. He's absolutely insane.
And he's threatening Matt. What did Matt do to piss him off? Are you sure?
Yeah, well, Chris Bacon.
It's not
Chris
over
Bacon
nothing.
got caught for
ranking whores.
Giving out ranks to whores.
Whore ranking. Yeah, whore ranking. That's a wholesome hobby. I mean, you know, if you're gonna have a hobby, it might as well be whore ranking.
I mean, it's better than spending your money on like comic books, I suppose.
The resale value is nice.
He said he ate out a hooker's vagina on one of the reviews.
Ew.
Could you imagine? I can't imagine because
No, I don't.
I've never had a problem with vagina, so I can't really I don't want to risk my freedom for a prostitute, so I cannot reconcile.
Right. So he's a flawed character, this Chris Bacon fella.
Well, y'all gay people you're gay, so aren't y'all promiscuous in this type of environment?
Yes.
Isn't this?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't done studies or anything, but I think we're as promiscuous. We're more promiscuous than we are monogamous. But when we're monogamous, we're fucking monogamous.
Yeah, it's like a cult.
We yeah, okay, sure. Well, gay cult. like Tom Daly and his husband, and Dave Rubin and his husband.
Just like, you know.
So, which would you rather a child grow up in? A household with two dads that stayed married for decades and raised children, or just a single mother?
So I've seen a lot of YouTube videos of like these evil moms, bro. Evil moms.
I didn't say
And
lesbian.
then
Gay men couples. No lesbians.
other than like gay men like diddling with boys, do they crime statistics, like, are they as, I don't know, that's a hard thing. Neither? None of them?
I didn't research it. I don't know what you're asking, but I didn't
Man
research
and
that.
women. Man and women, you know? It's the only way. It's the only way. Because it's natural. That's like the
It's
human
the
nature.
way, yeah. And what's the
Nothing.
replacement
Absolutely
rate?
nothing.
2.25 kids
You don't
per
see
couple, per heterosexual.
you don't
couple.
see two male eagles raising eggs out of a nest. You don't see
You don't see me
two
flying in the
male
sky
lizards,
either.
you know, taking care of eggs. Like, I don't really. Your question is a new age, nonsensical perspective
Rubbish.
on how things that are born into this
So-
earth should be categorized. It should be categorized as
No, I mean, we get it. We understand how heterosexual sex works. We understand. So Tom Daly and his husband are raising a child, and Dave Rubin and his husband are raising two children. So that's at least two examples that I can give you of
the Treasury
couple.
Secretary. He's a gay dude, and he has a husband, and they got two adopted kids.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool.
So I just, like, you know,
Hope he hope he doesn't steal luggage.
in my brain, a female has to be there for a child, and a male has to be there for a child, both for
Right.
both
That's
for the
optimal.
maternal
Yes, I agree.
growth,
That's best.
and
Yes.
things like that. So, like, I feel like
And that's what I said. What's the replacement rate? 2.25 kids. Who wants a quarter of a kid? You might as well have 3 kids per couple. Stay married. A man and a woman should get together young, early, and stay together for decades and raise as many children as they can.
well, that's old school shit there.
It works. There's
There's
wrong
nothing the
with
matter with it, but that's just
old-fashioned or passe.
if it were up to me, I would like impregnate 3 or 4 women, and that would be.
Oh no, I'm saying it's optimal. I mean, there's other ways to reproduce. I'm just saying that's optimal for the
Yeah.
children. Is if the mother and father stay together for decades and raise the kids.
Yeah. If they're, I mean, shit, you got a lot of pretty impressive people who, I mean, it's all circumstantial. It's circumstantial. So, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Right. But would you rather 2 gay men raise a baby or a single mother raise a baby?
I don't know. Both are terrible options.
Hmm.
Yeah.
They're
Like,
not
a
the
single
best
woman
options.
is like the worst
Right.
thing in the world, raising a child, I think.
Yeah, but it's hard. It's difficult.
And then, like, having 2 gay men, statistically, I don't really know.
We tend to stay together longer, I think. when gay guys marry, they tend to stay married longer than, I don't know if it's all demographics or most, even heterosexual marriages. And lesbian marriages are the worst. Those bitches. Fuck the lesbians. I hate them. I don't like the lesbians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So what does that have to do with Chris Bacon?
Chris Bacon. Nothing. We just started going on that topic, I suppose.
Right. So he doxed Matt's phone
Well,
number.
yeah, I guess he's just been on a rampage here recently because he got.
Right, but he started with Eric July.
A lot of these people who go insane on the internet, it's kind of like what Elon and I think Trump said about, stealing Social Security and all that. The ones who complain the loudest are usually the criminals. And you see Bacon being called out for his actions, and he's screaming bloody fucking Mary, bro. Screaming bloody Mary. And
would you be mad if somebody filled out a police report on you for doing what Chris Bacon did to Eric July?
I don't know the circumstances. I don't know anything about that. I don't know about. The only thing I know about Chris Bacon is like this nonsense going on recently. Other than that, I don't know anything about him, to be honest.
Chris Bacon and Eric July live in the same neighborhood.
Okay.
They're neighbors. And Eric July called the police on Chris Bacon.
Yeah.
For going to the warehouse.
I think it was more than that. I think he got like shell accounts and stuff like that to post aerial shots of his business, and there was like more harassment to it. So I hope, Eric July. It's so interesting. You start making all this money and these people come after you, and you got to spend all this money on lawyers. Yeah, it's like,
yeah, that is weird.
You make X amount a year, you can guarantee, 25 to 30% of that's going to fucking lawyer fees. It's just ridiculous. Better get you some Jew lawyers. All right, let's see what we got before we get on our topics here. See what we got in the bookmarks.
I don't know how long my Starlink is going to hold up.
Pennsylvania is a little-known government office that handles a critical mission for the federal workforce, now set to be overhauled by the Department of Government Efficiency.
From the mine entrance, which they call the portal, we took some golf carts a few hundred feet down into the mine. You can feel the air change when you get inside, and you can see this is all just roughly cut out of the limestone. This was once a limestone mine. And down here, this is where we find the OPM office, where a few hundred federal employees process all retirement paperwork for the entire federal government.
It's an analog operation, all done on paper. It can take months for the Office of Personnel Management to process a case, potentially delaying retiree benefits.
The facility has literally miles of files, some 26,000 filing cabinets filled with retirement paperwork, some of them stacked 10 high.
Matt McIsaac runs the day-to-day operations inside.
When you look out over all of this, what do you see?
I see people. I see careers. I see service.
And like, what do you mean a mine?
When Elon Musk...
What were you saying?
Jobs, that's brilliant. That is a brilliant bureaucracy handling all that paper. They literally just shuffle paper. I mean, it's very important paper, but when you when you look out at it and look at, what do you see? I see people. I see jobs. Of course, you don't see any efficiency. All you see are just this.
Yeah, it's a joke. Like, that guy's a complete fucking joke. There was Mike Davis did a interview with that big titty bitch. I forget her name. that I quite enjoyed. But they were talking about the senior executive service and how Trump has been coming after them. I don't know where it is, and I thought that was pretty good. You know, you needed to come after individuals like that guy who just said what he said. Like you got to fire those guys. Yeah, the sheeple powder, exactly. You got to fire them.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get on with our history lesson.
Okay.
Presidential election in 1789 was very different from the way Americans do presidential elections today. In 1789, there were no official candidates. There was no campaigning for the office. There were no political parties, no nominating conventions, no primary elections. The entire election season was very short. And the major issue of this election was the Constitution itself, whether the very system that they were using as the basis for the election, whether they would keep the system. Okay, well, you might be thinking, why were they electing a president for the first time in 1789? Didn't they declare independence in 1776? What were they doing for those 13 years? Well, they didn't have a president during those 13 years. It's important to remember that the United States of America was not originally a single country. It was a collection of 13 separate countries. The 13 colonies that were participating in the rebellion had each been separate from each other, distinct colonies, with ties between themselves and Britain, but not really ties amongst themselves between the different colonies. So when the 13 colonies declared their independence, they did so not as a single unified country, but as 13 separate countries in association with each other, what we would today call an international organization, in order to accomplish their common goal of freeing themselves from British rule. There was only one branch of government, effectively, on the federal level, which was the Continental Congress. Although to call it the federal level is a stretch, because there wasn't a federal government, so to speak. Anything that the Continental Congress decided to do had to be enforced by the states, and if a state did not want to enforce it, they didn't have to. Some people at the time saw this as a problem, and they thought that the states would be better off if they entered into a closer union with each other. This was mainly for financial reasons, but I'm not going to get into that. So they held a constitutional convention in Philadelphia in 1787, in which they drafted the Constitution that we use today in the United States. Now, this new Constitution was different from the way it had been before. So under the old system, you had one branch of government, the Continental Congress. In this new system, there were three branches of government. There was the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. The legislative branch would consist of Congress, but now Congress would have two separate houses, a House of Representatives, which would represent the people directly, and the Senate, which would represent the states. And then the executive branch would be headed by a president. And then under him would be everyone who is in charge of executing the laws passed by Congress. And then the judicial branch was headed by the Supreme Court, and then there would be various courts underneath the Supreme Court. So one of the questions that the framers of the Constitution had to answer was, how are they going to get the president chosen? Now, one obvious choice would be to have him chosen by Congress. That would essentially make it a parliamentary system. Like in most English-speaking countries, there's a parliamentary system where Parliament decides who the Prime Minister is going to be, and the Prime Minister runs the government. The framers of the Constitution did not want to do that.
And that system still exists today, and that's called the Westminster system.
And by framers, I
In
mean...
England, is that the way they do it in England?
Say again?
Their prime ministers. Is that the way they do it in England?
Yeah.
Their prime ministers are elected.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Every single one of the Commonwealth countries use the parliamentary / Westminster system.
Runs the government. The framers of the Constitution did not want to do that. And by framers, I mean the men who met in Philadelphia in the summer of 1787 and drafted the Constitution. They're called framers, the framers. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to maintain a strict separation between the executive branch and the legislative branch. So that was off the table. So how else could they elect the president? Well, one option, which is the option I think most Americans today would take for granted, was that the president would be elected directly by the voters. The framers of the Constitution also didn't like that idea. They thought that it would be not practical to do that, and also not wise. So the framers hit upon another system that was neither of those two things. What they would have would be the famous Electoral College, this body of individuals who exist within the executive branch, so you don't have to worry about cross-contamination with the legislative branch. And the Electoral College's only job was every 4 years they would elect the president. Now, how do you choose the members of the Electoral College? Well, they just left that up to the states. However the states wanted to do that. If the state legislature wanted to choose their electors, they could do that. If the state legislature wanted to leave that up to the voters to decide, they could do that too. So the American presidential election has two stages. First, you have to choose the electors, and then once the electors are chosen, they choose the president. That's still the system that's used in the U.S. today. And when Americans go to the polls in early November of an election year, they're voting for electors. And then the electors meet, nowadays it's in the middle of December, and they cast their votes for president, and that's the actual election of the president. So what we call Election Day is actually the election of the electors. The Constitution gives Congress the power to decide when each of those elections happens, when the electors are elected and when the president is elected. Nowadays, it's early November and mid-December. In this first election in 1789, the election of electors happened on January 7th, and then the electors would meet and choose the president on February 4th, 1789. So Election Day in 1789 was January 7th. That was what we would call Election Day. Now, some online sources will say that this particular presidential election happened over 2 years, 1788-89. It's not quite true. The election was January 7th, 1789. It was just in 1789. Where that's kind of true is in two states, in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. They actually had a two-stage process for choosing their electors. They would have voters essentially nominate who they would want to have as electors, and then the state legislature would choose from a list that the voters sent up to the legislature. So in both New Hampshire and Massachusetts, the voters went to the polls. Polls isn't the right word. The voters went to their town meetings and voted for who they'd like to be elector. And then those names went to the state legislature. And on January 7th, the state legislature picked from among that list. But in the other states that participated in the election, it was just January 7th, 1789.
And while this was happening, the French Revolution was really kicking off at an era like this. And you started to have certain individuals flee France, New Brittany, Kent of Britain. You had some Irish folks really start to push in this direction, and I think, once they landed on the shores, when this game was being played, that's where you really started to get like an interesting contention, which I believe is like kind of like what made Washington kind of step aside, because because really this was a lot of dirty laundry that was going on at this time. It was really a struggle of the strongest head of the Hydra, I would say. So it's really interesting. Right. And then you started having a lot of migration. That's how you got the people who created New Haven in Connecticut, who ended up creating Yale, and who ended up in the White House today through the Ryan family and stuff like that. So
now, there were 11 states that participated in the election of 1789. Rhode Island and North Carolina had rejected the Constitution and therefore were technically not part of the United States and not participate.
No Tennessee.
Tennessee didn't exist. Kentucky didn't exist. West Virginia
Right.
didn't
It's
exist.
just North Carolina. That's just one.
Yeah,
big,
it was just to the rivers. As far
Right.
as they had gone.
from the mountains to the from the
Yeah,
coast to the river.
As far as they
Okay,
had technically gone at that point, even though we already know we were on the Indian reserves of those motherfuckers
It's a
west
tiny
of the
foothold.
Ohio.
That's a
So,
tiny foothold on this big old country we got now.
in the election.
Yeah.
In 5 of the states, the state legislatures chose the electors. In 4 of the states, the electors were chosen directly by the voters. And then in 2 other states, they had a hybrid system. Now let's take a minute and look at the states that did direct elections, because they did it differently in the different states. In Pennsylvania and Delaware, they had statewide elections, meaning in Pennsylvania, wherever you were in the state, if you were voting in the election, you voted for 10 names. And then the top 10 vote getters statewide would become elector. Delaware did the same thing, but they had 3 electors. So wherever you were statewide, you voted for 3 names. In Maryland, it was also statewide. Everybody wrote down 8 names because Maryland got 8 electors. But Maryland had a rule where 5 of the names had to come from the Western Shore and 3 of the names from the Eastern Shore. Virginia did it a little bit differently because the Virginia legislature actually created electoral districts. Virginia got 12 electoral votes, and so the legislature divided the state up into 12 electoral districts. Each one would elect 1 elector. And these were distinct from the 10 congressional districts that Virginia had. Virginia was the only state to do it this way. So looking at the different states and the way they did it, that reflects the politics of the different states. So Pennsylvania, for example, the Pennsylvania legislature was dominated by Federalists, meaning people who were pro-Constitution. Support for the Constitution tended to be stronger in the cities. So they thought by making it a statewide ballot, it would make it more likely for Federalists to be elected as elector. The Virginia legislature was dominated by anti-Federalists, people who were opposed to the new Constitution. And they wanted to improve the rural vote, and so they drew districts to make it more likely that rural people would be elected as electors, and rural people were more likely to be opposed to the Constitution. And this touches on the big issue of the presidential election that year, which was the Constitution itself, whether the Constitution was even a good idea. It was extremely controversial in a way that I think most Americans today probably don't really realize. But there were a lot of people who were opposed to the Constitution at the time, and the passage of the Constitution was quite controversial in several states. Some Americans felt like the Constitution was a betrayal of the goals of the Revolutionary War. They felt like they had traded one tyranny for another. They'd gotten rid of the tyranny of the British Parliament and the British monarchy, and they had now were instituting a new tyranny of a new federal system. A lot of Americans, especially in rural areas and out in the western areas, were afraid that this new federal system would be opposed to their own interests, that the federal government would be dominated by commercial interests from the port cities, and would make policy decisions that would financially benefit the big port cities and disadvantage rural areas. In fact, this controversy between those who favored the Constitution and those who were opposed to it ended up making it so that New York could not participate in the presidential election at all, because the New York legislature was divided. The upper house, the Senate, was majority Federalist. The lower house, the Assembly, was majority anti-Federalist. So the Senate, which was 10-8 in favor of the Constitution, wanted each house of the legislature to choose 4 of New York's 8 electors. The Senate would choose 4, and the Assembly would choose 4. And that way, 4 of New York's 8 electors would be pro-Constitution. The Anti-Federalists wanted the legislature to decide on the electors as a whole. So each member of the legislature would get 1 vote. They would have 1 slate of 8. Essentially, they would choose them in a joint session of the 2 houses. What that would mean practically is that all 8 of New York's electors would be anti-Constitution. So the Assembly would pass a bill saying this is how we're going to choose our electors. It would go to the Senate. The Senate would say, no, we're not going to do it that way. They would pass their own bill that would go back to the Assembly, and the Assembly would turn it down. It went to conference.
And you remember during this period, this is when New York was trying to usurp the whole system.
Trying to be
Yeah,
top dog,
they were
top
trying to
shit.
take everything from Pennsylvania. They're trying to take everything from what was being institutionalized, I guess, as you would say, in the early days of Virginia, especially around the Potomac River and the rivers that go into the Chesapeake, which you can take a lot of property in and out through the Chesapeake routes, through land and rivers, which coincidentally today a lot of that property in Chesapeake is owned by Blackwater of all people. You know, how interesting. So it's really crazy that we were able to survive the way that we did.
Right. So, I mean, but what do you think of that idea that each state is in effect, a separate
The
country?
United States of America, each state you could define as their own country. That's why each state has a governor. A governor is the president, the chief executive officer of the state. Yeah,
Of the state.
for the lack of better terms. And that's the way it was designed. The 13 colonies were independent nation states.
Right. And we don't need passports to travel.
Well, that didn't exist back then. This was before the post office
countries.
existed. So, you remember Voltaire and Benjamin Franklin.
Indeed.
I was just mentioning how the French were shoving their dick in all of the asses of the southern cotton mill folks and shit like that, tobacco.
Louisiana.
Benjamin Franklin was very adamant on protecting the interests of the French mercantilists. How do you say that? Mercantilists, glasses makers, just whatever they had at the time. Tea, that was actually pretty interesting around where Ben Franklin was. And he was a spy. He was a spy for the French.
For whom?
As he was creating the United States government. So, yeah, absolutely,
Really?
absolutely. It was Masonic is the.
Haven't the French traditionally been our
Absolutely
allies?
not.
I mean, from
Absolutely
the very
not.
beginning.
You remember?
Were they on our side at the Revolutionary
So you remember
War?
while Benjamin?
They were sort of absent.
You remember while Benjamin Franklin was helping America along on its way, it was Benjamin Franklin who brought the postmaster general system into America, and that was wholly what you would call European system. It was controlled by the Austrians, the Holy Roman Empire, and the royal court Jews who ended up creating the post office with Emperor Francis of Austria or something like that. Emperor Francis I. And while Benjamin Franklin was doing that, he was also institutionalizing the Nine Sister Masonic Temple in France. So it was Voltaire, Benjamin Franklin, and the royal families that survived in France who ended up fleeing to America that were able to, I hate the French, but they were able to really persuade a lot of the early, what would you call them? Industrialists? You wouldn't call them that. Plantationists. Because the South, especially the Talfier family from Georgia, the Savannah, Georgia region, which is a hub today that connects to Atlanta, Georgia, which like Christopher Wray wife used to run our FBI. His wife is a banking heiress to like the Second Bank of Georgia, and they're all connected to the because remember in one of my old streams I went over specifically how it was Napoleon's great nephew who ended up creating the first version of the FBI. Right.
Oh, okay.
So that was like the French, and then I had
I probably have that
yeah,
written
and then
down
I had,
somewhere. I
had
think I took
explained, and that's how you got the Pacers, a lot of the early Kabbalah type of what do you call them? Like alchemists of the 1800s, 1700s. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, magic trick guys. So anyway, those are the dudes who helped George Washington. Revolutionaries inside of the French and revolutionaries inside of the British who really worked with us to create the system that we have today. And then you ended up having like that's how you had the Madison families, the what's the family that started the national banks with the Madison? The
Vanderbilts.
no, they were like cosmopolitan drama queens. There were the Hamiltons, the Hamiltonians. So it's like the Hamiltons, the Madisonites, and all that. There's a very interesting dynamic that was going on, and like the likelihood of America ever being created again in our world is it has to be billions and billions
Gone.
and billions.
Right. Unless everything
You
is
could
wiped out,
probably
and
win
it all
the
happens again.
lottery 4 or 5 times before the situation of the United
Right.
States being created again ever happening again. So
are we the boss of the world, the United States? It is an extraordinary country.
are we the boss of the world?
It is probably the best use of landmass for humans in the history of humanity. We have a huge hunk of global real estate that we're all, I mean,
What's that, Richie?
fairly happy to coexist in.
I think America is the best place to live for freedom, but in terms of power structures and powerhouses,
Are we the boss? Yes. So much power. Yeah.
you know, can we really compete with monarchs in the Vatican? Can you?
Depends on what
If
the
you got a big
monarchs
set
in the
of
Vatican
balls,
want.
you can compete with the monarchs in the Vatican. It takes a big set of balls.
Is the Pope still
Yeah,
alive? Did
he actually
recover
was
from
on
his
television.
respiratory distress?
They showed him on television, and they wheel him out in a
Did
week.
he
No,
speak?
he did not.
Oh,
He did not. I wonder if it's a guy with a mask on.
Did he wave?
He got the
Could
Mission
he
Impossible
wave?
mask. You know what I mean?
Like, he looked all popely, but did he wave?
Yeah, he looked pretty pathetic.
did he-
So, all right. Anyway, let's go back to this.
Committee, they argued over it, couldn't come to a resolution. This went on for weeks. Then January 7th came, and they were deadlocked. So midnight, January 7th, they still hadn't chosen their electors. That was it. So they did not have electors. The same gridlock meant that New York had no senators because it was up to the state legislature to choose senators. So it took them until, I think, the summer of 1789 to finally decide who their senators were going to be. A similar thing actually
They
happened
didn't
in
have
New
their
Hampshire.
shit together.
Because New Hampshire's legislature was also divided in a similar way. But in that case, the Anti-Federalists in the lower house of the New Hampshire legislature gave in and agreed to the Senate's terms. So New Hampshire did, and it was very close to midnight when they made that compromise. So New Hampshire did end up...
I just realized what I said. I said Napoleon's great nephew created the FBI.
Yeah.
I did not mean to say that.
Just CIA. I thought you said CIA.
It was the emperor. It was the emperor's brother's great nephew. So,
Which emperor?
who was the last? They went to the temple.
What country? Austria.
No, France. Who was the last emperor during Napoleon?
Oh, he was then, wasn't he? Yeah,
No,
he
before
was.
him.
That's
Before Napoleon messed with everything. Who was that emperor?
oh
Louis.
Louis.
Louis. French Louis. Yeah, Louis. It was the Louis family's great nephew, but also Napoleon.
Okay.
Napoleon definitely participated. I mean, you got von der Leyen of the European Union today. She was the silk. Her family had a complete and utter monopoly on silk during the Holy Roman Empire, around, I would say, late 1600s, 1700s, 1800s,
What
early
does that mean
1900s.
today? What does that mean to her today?
Well, it was Napoleon. It was Napoleon who knighted von der Leyen, great 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 grandfather, and actually knighted them and turned them into royalty. And then you have a silk merchant monopolistic family who was the monopolist during the Holy Roman Empire, knighted by Napoleon, and today she's the European Commissioner of the European Union. So, I mean, the odds of that happening are what?
Over a century.
Participating in the election.
I think I just won my taxes.
Oh yeah?
I just switched from TurboTax to H&R Block. It was so easy.
Now, this business of whether an elector was pro-Constitution or anti-Constitution, what was that about? The Constitution ended up getting approved in these 11 states, but there were a lot of people who were uncomfortable with it, and so what they hoped they could do was get a second convention. That's what they wanted to have. They wanted to get a second constitutional convention that would draft a different constitution that would be more acceptable to the anti-federalists. Barring that, they could, at the very least, get elected to positions within the federal government and then undermine the federal system from within, and thereby
So what did
prevent the full weight of the federal government from.
want? What do the anti-federalists want?
They
wanted each governor to have absolute power over his country.
over his state. The original. I mean, this was during the early language, so who knows how they really felt in the moment. But they were anti-government. They were the libertarians, the true libertarian of the day, and the anti-federalists were what we could possibly conceive as being a libertarian today based off what they say.
Okay.
Most people aren't really a libertarian because they enjoy all the economic freedoms of
Perks
America.
that the federal government brings.
Yeah, like this. Imagine
I enjoy
7 of
the
9.
perks, but I wish it wasn't that way.
Well, imagine 7 of 9. You got a decent family. You're in Georgia, and you've never heard of this thing called a unified government. Like your family for a couple generations has just been growing tobacco, and all of a sudden you have people, and say for example you're around the Georgia region, all of a sudden you have all these people from Virginia, Maryland, and everything starting to put their rules into your system, your daily routine. So that's a very huge step. It's a very huge undertaking to take, like what Trump is doing today with tariffs. It's a huge undertaking because you got to imagine, from like the Tennessee Valley to the bottoms of the Appalachian Mountains, going all the way from that region to the northern borders of Florida. You have South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi and Louisiana. People were living there, and they weren't even states yet. And so imagine all of a sudden you start getting all these gay looking niggas coming from New York with their top hats and everything, just trying to put their rules on top of you. trying to put their regulations on top of you,
Is that what they
you
were
would
doing?
lose your mind. You're like, who in the fuck are you? So that's the early libertarian, is what is a anti-federalist would have
Okay.
felt, I would imagine, back then.
From coming into force, perhaps to make people disillusioned with the federal system and provoke them to agree to a new constitutional convention. Another thing was, if you get anti-federalists elected to Congress, at the very least, they could be clamoring to get amendments. Now, when the Constitution was approved in the various states, the pro-Constitution people promised, which seems a little bit shady in retrospect, honestly, but they said, oh, go ahead and approve the Constitution now. We promise we'll adopt amendments later. So people were voting for the Constitution with the promise in the future. It wasn't really binding, but with this understanding that in the future amendments will be adopted, which ended up happening. That was the Bill of Rights, which came into effect in 1791. But that was the idea of electing anti-Constitution electors. They were hoping that if you get enough anti-federalists as electors, then they could cause problems for the presidential election. Everybody knew that Washington was going to become president. They knew that actually back in 1787 when they were drafting the Constitution. George Washington was one of the Virginia's delegates, and he was actually sitting there in the room while they're all talking about the president, and it was kind of an open secret that they're creating this office, and George Washington's going to be the guy they're going to put in that office first. So the Federalists were afraid that anti-Federalist
And it's Madison. Wasn't it Madison that's next to Franklin? And remember, Franklin is hanging out with all the, what you would call at the time, like alchemists and
Franklin.
Satanists, Washington State. That's who Benjamin Franklin was, and he was a sexual scoundrel.
Yeah, he was a pimp. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a pimp.
Yeah.
And remember, he was the ambassador for France.
For France, yeah, he was. Yes,
He
was our ambassador for France.
Yeah, as the French
as a spy
empire was crumbling, he still had say
1812
in the creation of the United States. Isn't that fascinating? Absolutely fucking fascinating.
Electors might mess up the election. And how would they do that? The framers of the Constitution created this system where the electors would vote for two people for president rather than one person. And then the person who got the most votes would become president, and the person who got the second most votes would be vice president.
Yeah,
and the weakness of this system became apparent immediately, because the way it's supposed to work is George Washington will get the most votes, and then John Adams will get the second most votes. Then you get president, vice president. Great. But what if George Washington does not get the most votes? What if he gets the second most votes? What if some anti-federalist electors decide not to vote for George Washington? Maybe they vote for Adams and then some other candidate, just some throwaway name. They could potentially throw the election to Adams, making John Adams the first president and George Washington the vice president. Now, the problem with that is Adams was not as popular as Washington, especially in the South.
Yes.
And so that could reduce the goodwill that the general public had for the federal government, right? And so that would help to undermine the federal government and therefore achieve the ends that the anti-Constitution people had. That was something that the Federalists were afraid could happen. Or alternatively, another possibility would be if there were enough anti-Federalist electors, they could get George Washington elected president and then an anti-Federalist elected vice president. Now, among the anti-Federalists, there were a few names, but I think the most common name that was bandied about at the time was George Clinton. If you were an anti-Federalist elector,
George Clinton,
it was expected that you would end up voting for Clinton. Maybe Washington Clinton, or maybe Adams Clinton. You could do that. So just to give you an example of a possible thing that could play out, the Federalist electors could vote for Washington and Adams, and then the anti-Federalist electors could vote for Adams and Clinton.
So you remember the Clinton family at this time. You had the socialite female Clintons that they hung out with the Rothschilds. There's dictionaries or dictionaries. There's diaries of Rothschild families who have socialite relationships with the Clintons of early America. And the Clinton family, which today is like the Rockefellers, and that one family from Arkansas, I forget their name off the top of my head. Like, the Council of Foreign Relations. Have you ever heard of that? Which is in the Pratt House, which is part of the Pratt family created the earliest version of what you would call today the Department of Education. And so around the Pratt House, you have like Clinton Street or Clinton Avenue. And these are like the Will Clinton family, the Bill Clinton family of all names, right? How serendipitous is that?
I know, right?
They were the ones who worked with Ben Franklin and the expatriates of the French
Revolution
as they were being forced out of France, and they ended up landing in America.
They made allies.
And so you remember, and at this time, the
like
Clinton
Lafayette, didn't George Washington hire some guy named Lafayette, a French guy, to whip his army in shape?
Yeah, and that's why we have Lafayette Street. Louisiana is King Louis and Princess Anna.
Yep.
And they ended up being a part of like our central banker.
We
today
bought
is the
all
Powell.
that shit from France. The Louisiana Purchase. Yeah, we bought it. We just bought it from the French.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and those merchants.
I kind of like the French. The French are bastards, but I kind of like them.
Well, the Clinton families back then were just as shitty as they are today.
Clinton is French. Are the Clintons French?
I think the Clintons probably have a similar DNA to me. Southern Britain, Northwestern, Western France, and then the river merchants connected to the Seine family. Because you remember, like Napoleon is a part of the Seine River family merchant monopolists. They are the ones who took over the Celts during what's his face's Holocaust of the Celts. What was his name?
I don't know.
Caesar. You remember when Caesar was destroying the Celts? This stronghold of Seine River merchants survived that era.
Is that where Hadrian built the wall?
Hadrian, that's between Scotland and Britain. I'm talking about in France, where the Celts, like the Clintons, were a part of all of that.
And so then Adams ends up getting the most votes. Washington comes in second. Clinton comes in third. That makes Adams the president, Washington the vice president. Just as one example of many possible permutations of this. So the point is, the system that was written into the Constitution was a bad system. Having the electors vote for two names and not designate which one they wanted to be president, which one they wanted to be vice president, was a flaw. And people at the time recognized that as a flaw. So remember, there are two stages of electing the president. First, you get the electors, and then the electors choose the president. So the electors were going to meet and choose the president on February 4th. In the run-up to that electoral college vote, some political figures in the country were trying to organize a system where they would make sure that Adams didn't get as many votes as Washington. And the most prominent figure in this movement was Alexander Hamilton. He was writing a ton of letters to different people. He was not the only one involved with this. There were a few others also who were writing letters to different states, writing to the different electors, saying, make sure you don't vote Washington Adams. Make sure there are some guys there who are going to vote for somebody besides Adams.
Yeah.
So if you look at the results,
and then Hamilton, their family, along with a couple other families, they are the precursor to the central bank. They were the foundation families who laid the first brick of the first national banks of America. which eventually became the central banks. So that's how far back like the Hamiltons were participating. Like since the beginning of the United States creation, they have been fucking with us even till today.
So the banks are the hubs of where the money flows.
Well, so you remember at
they
this
control
time,
it all. They finance.
well, remember at this time,
it and-
certain states, as they started to print money, the money printer was
another thing.
held inside of each state.
That's
So
that's
you had
another thing.
Delaware, Pennsylvania,
I like the federal
and then the
system
other main
better
printer.
because there's one currency.
Yeah, and Hamilton, the Hamilton family, the British royal families, the what's that river in Germany? By the Saxons, the Rhine River families, and all those guys, they did not like that each state could print money, and so you had the Hamiltons being tasked with stopping that, even from the early get-go of the creation of the United States. And then, like you see right here, that the Edward Telfair, the Telfair family, they're a huge Georgia family. The Miltons, they're Northeastern families, the Hancocks, Virginia Northeastern families, Clintons, Northeastern, the Rutledge families. I think those are based, that's really a college education family. And of course, Adams. Adams family was.
So everybody in the first column got at least one vote. Good for them.
Yeah.
Well, did Edward? I don't know. So if you're looking for the results, it's covering it up. Did he get a vote?
So the 1789 election, you look at the Electoral College votes. It looks like, everybody voted for Washington, and then a bunch of people voted for Adams, and then there were a bunch of small vote totals for other people. A lot of those votes were.
Yeah.
All right. So going from right to left, you have New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, South Carolina, and Georgia. Is that right?
The original 10 voters. Yes.
No, that Edward Telfair fellow didn't get a vote. Did he get a vote?
So you had your 13 colonies, which got absorbed into 11 individual country systems, I guess, like you could call it that. And then you had the constitutions and everybody. You had the Constitution coming out because these individuals wanted those 13 colonies united. And as that process went from the pre-constitutional system to the constitutional system, in the first system, you only had 10 out of the 11 states allowed to vote of the original 13 colonies. So by the time our first continental vote, whatever you want to call it, happened, of the original 13, only 10 were allowed to participate.
So New York was excluded.
Completely excluded.
Who are the other two? Who are the other two? 13.
Vermont and whatchamacallit was considered one square.
Oh, okay.
And then you had
I'll have to look at a map. Who's the last one?
New Jersey. North Carolina. That the North Carolina system.
Yeah.
Yeah, the North Carolina system was deorganized, whatever you want to call it, and then reinstitutionalized because they were able to split the borders in half. Right? 13 colonies?
Yeah.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken.
Deliberate throwaway votes where they would.
Delaware was completely split in half, so it was considered a perfect square at the time. And the other half of the Delaware, what's right next to Delaware? fucking drawing a blank. Vermont was not a thing at that time because it had been absorbed and then recreated, so to speak.
Would have voted for Adams, but deliberately chose not to vote for Adams because they were trying to mitigate against a potential anti-federalist scheme. In Connecticut, they had 7 electors. 5 of them voted for Washington and Adams. 2 of them voted for Washington and Huntington. The votes for Huntington were going to go to Adams. They voted for Huntington as part of the scheme that Hamilton was organizing. In Pennsylvania, again, those 2 that voted for Hancock would have voted for Adams. In Maryland, there were 8 electoral votes. 2 of the electors could not actually make it to the election. The Electoral College meets on a state-by-state basis, so the electors in each state come together. In Maryland, the 8 electors were supposed to meet in Annapolis to do their voting. 2 of the electors couldn't make it. One of them was sick. He had gout and therefore couldn't travel. The other one was unable to because of ice that blocked. I think he had to cross either the Chesapeake Bay or a river, and it was filled with ice, and so he wasn't able to make it to Annapolis. Only 6 electors in Maryland participated.
What's up?
The logistics of it. I mean, how did they vote? People had to write on paper, and it had to be collected and then transported somehow to the state legislature so they could count it. And how did they count it?
Well, they would officiate it in their town hall, their Capitol building, whatever you would call it at the time.
Okay.
And those electors in that officiation would be the ones who voted for the president.
Okay.
And in
It's
some
like
states,
a mini electoral college.
yeah, the very first version of it.
Individual way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on one second.
All 6 of them voted Washington and Harrison. Harrison was Chief Justice of the Maryland General Court. He was not a national figure. They voted for him purely as part of Hamilton's scheme to make sure that Washington came in first and Adams came in second. They would have voted for Adams otherwise.
There's more than 6 votes.
Now, not all of these votes were like that. In some of the states, the electors really...
What the hell? What?
There's more than 6 votes that separated Washington from Adams. Like Washington got 64 and Adams got 39.
Yeah, and it was the
Masons.
Masons. It was the Masons who catapulted Washington to be the first president instead of Adams. Because you had a lot of the French Masons coming into Connecticut, and Connecticut.
All right. So Adams was the vice. He ended up being vice president, right?
And then president, right? Like the second or third one.
Yes. And then his grandson was president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I think, wasn't Adams a Mason? Because you remember, like, the Masons back then, they were pretty segregated, right? That's a good word to use. They were pretty segregated. You had plantationists starting to have sex with, like, the French early day Masons, and, you know, they were splitting up their properties and things like that. You had the Ryan family playing a really big role, even though they weren't called that back then. I forget the name of the family who created New Haven, and whoever owned the Yale land and gave the Yale land to Yale were the original creators of New Haven, and their ancestors had essentially created Connecticut. And there, you know,
Connecticut,
the New Haven ports still to this day are very
ports are very important. I mean, all up and down the seacoast, even Massachusetts and Nantucket, and what's that little finger that points out from Boston?
Yeah, the little islands
all the way.
And then you had
and New York's ports are astounding. They have that Long Island right there that's sort of keeps the water at bay, and they can ship it up the rivers. That's a brilliant place. No wonder that city is so big.
Yeah, and it connects all the way, and you can take just a short trip from the river routes to the earliest railroads, and that can get you to Newfoundland.
Great rivers. We have great rivers.
And that's how America was created.
Right, and 2 continental divides.
Were voting for someone besides Adams because they didn't want Adams. They wanted somebody else instead. I think the votes for John Jay were like that. I think the votes for John Jay were legitimately for John Jay. I mean, I did a lot of reading about this, but I couldn't figure out exactly for every single state what the motivations were of the electors. But if I were to guess, and this is based on incomplete research of the election, I think the election would have looked more like this if there hadn't been so much strategic voting. Now, this setup of the way the electors would vote for president, voting for 2 names and not distinguishing which one you wanted to be.
What's up?
It's still 20 votes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
President,
John Adams,
which one vice president. This continued to be a problem in everything. Now, this setup of the way the electors would vote for president, voting for 2 names and not distinguishing which one you wanted to be president and which one vice president, this continued to be a problem in every presidential election after this until they fixed it. And they finally fixed it in the 12th Amendment, where they said that electors will say which one they're voting for president and which one they're voting for vice president. The election results really hurt John Adams. I mean, he didn't have any expectation of being elected president. He, like everyone else, expected Washington to get the most electoral votes, but he didn't expect to get as few electoral votes as he got. Oh. And he felt kind of devastated by that.
Bless him.
It's kind of sad because it
was
didn't
a
have to
slight
happen
little
that way.
fella, wasn't
They
he?
didn't have
Wasn't he
to worry. That
sort of wasn't he like a little tiny fella, like an unassuming guy?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of know about Adams, but I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't strike the figure that George Washington does. You got to be the second guy.
That the Anti-Federalists would pull off a scheme, because they didn't. All the fears about Anti-Federalist shenanigans came to nothing. Washington easily got all 69 electoral votes, and Adams wasn't going to get more than him. There were enough people voting for Hancock and John Jay and Rutledge to prevent Adams from tying with Washington. So it's kind of sad how that worked out. But anyway, those are the election results. George Washington was elected president. John Adams was elected vice president. Okay. They both traveled to New York, which was the first seat of the federal government, and were sworn in the spring of 1789.
Never spent a day in the White House.
Terms, respectively. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this election. If you're an American, do you think it'd be better or worse to have our elections the way they were back in 1789? If you're not an American, how much better do you think your system is compared to the original American system of 1789?
I think we have the worst system. We have the worst. We have the worst system except for all of the others.
No, we have the best system.
It's flawed, but
it's not. It's not.
It's not perfect, but it works. It's been working. You can't argue with its results. Look at us in 2025.
So
we're king shit.
The worst system in the world is the Westminster system, the parliamentary system. It's the worst,
except for all the others.
One, because you're ran by a prime minister that technically isn't elected by the people, and you're ran by a foreign minister or a president, whatever title you want to give them, who is even more subvertly not selected by the people. And you have hybrid versions of this, which is the French Republic version, which still has a monarch pitch to it, but they still have a bastardized version.
Are the old monarchs, are the old French monarchs in charge of France today, even though they're not elected to positions of power? Are they still running the joint?
Most of the French are here in America, and the Louis family, which is like the Paysors and who was that French guy? Was it Lafayette who was against Napoleon? Who was against Napoleon? Who was like his main rival? I forget his name.
A
His
king who
great,
is the king of England. I mean,
well, his
he
great
might-
great great nephew is the
So-
largest stock market trader in the London Exchange today. And
how
this
did he manage that?
in so it's between the London Stock Market Exchange. You have Napoleon's great 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 great. You have the progenitor of the family, and you have that one guy. I'm forgetting. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Him and Napoleon's family are the number 1 and the number 2 stock traders in the London Stock Exchange to this day. And so, you know, it's just like, here's a prime example. Like when China fell apart, when the empire fell apart, other than, you know, the eunuchs and everyone stealing everything from them, when they reset up their government, they put all of the royalty inside of the government. And
Okay.
so even though they're not royalty, they're royalty by proxy today. So that's the answer, right?
Yeah, kind of. Okay, so
Yeah.
China didn't overthrow the monarchy; they just put them in charge. But
Yeah,
it
they
still
got-
kind of runs that way. But you don't have
Yes,
you
exactly.
just
Like most of the Chinese government is ran by the Manchus royalty, the Han royalty, and then
which family is Xi Ping? Is that
Xi
same?
Jinping is a Han,
Jinping.
if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
He's a Han, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, he looks like a Han.
But all of them, even the eunuch families, they got absorbed into the government, and that's what we have today. But then you had other families who were like, "I'm not getting rid of this monarchy stuff. Fuck no." And
it works for me. Why would I get rid of it?
yeah, exactly. And that's the British people, which are
Hmm.
German, Saxe Coburg Goths.
Holy Saxon Anglos. Yeah.
Yeah, the Anglo. What did Vladimir Putin say? He said the mortal enemies to Russia is the Anglo-Saxon alliance.
What? Putin's a weirdo.
No, he's not.
What does he think we want from him?
What? What do you mean?
That the Anglo-Saxon is the worst enemy to Russia? Is that
Yeah,
what he
and
said?
that's NATO, the European Union, the EU. That's the Anglo-Saxon alliance.
Do you think Europe would invade Russia if they got half a chance?
If Hillary Clinton became a president, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Would Kamala?
Well, isn't she a part of that whole California group? So I don't know. Are they gonna really put a Californian
In
the
charge of
power?
war? Yeah,
I don't think so.
that's a good point.
They'll let them run colleges, but they won't let them run a country.
No, that's a good idea. It's a good idea.
You remember
I'm glad it was her.
like the Brown Harrimans, the Gettys,
The newspaper people, the Gettys.
Yeah, those are the ones. Those early families, they're the ones that you always see Getty photos for. Getty can get into anywhere. Those are psychopaths, So, and they used to own the LA Dodgers, if I'm not mistaken.
They need a Doge.
Well, they need to stop monarching all of their descendants, brainwashing them all.
So, is there a mafia for everything? Like, there's a newspaper mafia. There's a concrete mafia. There's a wine mafia. There's an automobile mafia. Is there a mafia for like everything?
Absolutely. And usually
Cell phone mafia.
you can consider them governments at this point. So everything's a mafia, and they try to generalize that term and like wipe it out of the ethos, right? They try to
Out of the lexicon, scrub it from the language. Yeah.
But it's more important now today than ever before.
This thing. The sum of human knowledge in the palm of our hand, bro.
Yeah, like I'll give an example. The Emperor of Japan, his sister.
Don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
She renounced all of her empress titles, and now she's the head. She's the head bitch in charge of Japan's. She's the priestess to Japan's religion, but her husband is Port Mafia, the college mafia of Japan.
Oh, good marriage. That's a good marriage.
Yeah, and he's a Jesuit.
All right.
And so, what are you going to do?
A Jesuit in charge of a port, married to, who was she? Yeah.
A lot of Jesuits own the ports in the China Seas, bro. That's all
Are they Christian? They're Christian, yeah.
standard practice, I'd say. Like you get a lot of the Empress. She was trained in London before she's London trained before she married a Jesuit.
Have you heard her speak? Can you tell if somebody speaks with a Japanese accent whether or not they learned Japanese from England or America?
Well, she's Japanese. She's pure Japanese.
I know, but from her English, can you tell where she learned English from? If that makes sense.
Probably not, because the likelihood of them speaking English on a day-to-day basis has to be extremely low. Like, yeah.
How many languages does Barron Trump speak?
A few, I bet you.
I think 3, at least 3. Sounds about right.
Who was it? Laura Trump or Eric or Don Jr.'s daughter. They had a Chinese housemaid, and they raised the daughter in nothing but Chinese, and she can also play the violin.
That's kind of weird.
Well, no, Did
they adopt her, or did?
No. She's pure Trump, and she actually, when Donald Trump was president the first term, when Xi Jinping had a personal audience with Trump, it was Trump's granddaughter who played the violin.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. She played the violin and spoke Chinese to Xi Jinping. It's like, these are very important things. Like,
it is okay. So this is a nouveau family. Would you say the Trump family is a nouveau family? And you're talking about all these ancient families who came over here during the Revolutionary War, and when we're trying to elect George Washington. So Trump is he a nouveau?
When America was being created, Donald Trump's family was in mother's side was in Scotland, and Donald Trump's father's family was in Germany.
Scottish and German.
Scottish German.
Wow. That's a mutt.
So Trump is a part of his German side, his father's side. They own vineyards, which was taken by the Germans, just like Mel Gibson. His family's vineyard in Australia was taken by the British Empire. And Donald Trump's mother's side is a MacLeod of the MacLeod clan.
Oh, cool. Highlander.
Scotland. And so that makes Donald Trump
Highlander.
He's a chieftain. He's the chieftain.
Close enough. Is that like an official title? He's like a chieftain for real?
He is a chieftain.
That's cool. Yeah.
These families work that way. He is a chieftain of the MacLeod. And now Bassett, the Treasury Secretary, the gay dude, he's actually his Scottish heritage is of a MacLeod subgroup as well. They're not of the MacLeods of like the Isle of Skye and everything, but they're like Bessett's
this
family is a part of
family
the
less
MacLeod.
influential than the Bush family or the
Who?
Hamilton family. Trump's family. Are they were they any more influential throughout history than any of the others? I don't know what I'm trying to ask.
No,
$8.
I don't think so.
Sorry.
I don't think so. I think Trump is one of those certain families that both their mother's side and family side were very powerful, and after World War One, World War Two, they lost almost everything.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's still some families today who have a lot of animosity towards, like Mel Gibson's father has been fighting the Vatican since his like 30s, and they're like the Gibson family of Australia and like fucking mid Scotland, mid Ireland, wherever.
I have to pee. I'll be RB.
His mother's side was from, I forget, or father's side. Anyway, their shit got stolen from them too. So a lot of people, their shit was stolen from them, and they have a vendetta. That's how I see it.
Turn off that picture of who is that? Jimmy Neutron. Who is that? Make that picture go away. It's like a migraine. Be a grandma. I see sheeple. How dare? What sheeple do you see? How dare? A whore is a whore. And that's just the way it is. How dare? You are correct. I'm here. Woo. Message from the audience. Woo.
You said you don't like my music?
I was reading the chat. No, I don't like the image that's flashing. It looks like a migraine.
Oh, why did
There
you
you
say
go.
that earlier?
Cause peeing.
At what point does a salad
I had a salad for dinner tonight.
Attaboy. So, are we in the best possible worlds? Speaking of Candide or
Are
Voltaire.
we in the best possible world?
Voltaire. Are we in the best possible worlds? All of these people were just killed by the volcano. Well, we live in the best of all possible worlds. Of course, some people have to be killed in it. Indeed said that very thing. Is this the best possible United States of America that it could be in the past 200 and how many is it? 46 years? How many is it? I have to do my calculation.
Yes, I would say yes. I would say yes. You?
249 years. Yeah, well, yes. I would say yes as well. In that we didn't fuck it up for 200 or 250 years next year.
Well, it's been fucked up the whole time. Ever since America was created, it's been...
But we operate... Okay. Despite what we've seen, I think we're still a high-trust society in that we occupy a humongous hunk of global real estate. And it's ours. And it's nobody else's. The rest of the world can fuck off because this is what we have. And it's probably the best hunk of land on the globe, bar none. If we can keep it. I mean,
I think we can keep it, no problem.
If every state is a different country, then we travel in between them with no passports, without let or hindrance. We just carry on about our business.
Yeah, I think every country should aspire to create a republic like the United States, and the likelihood of that happening is
zero.
Very, very slim.
Okay.
But you need big ball motherfuckers who can pull off what they're pulling off. Like, I mean, Bukele in El Salvador, if Trump hired Bolsonaro, Javier Milei,
I like that guy.
What's her face? Melania from Italy,
yeah.
Like, if we didn't have these people, like, it takes someone like Trump to
spark a few more,
give the people the balls that they need, you know, and only America can do that. No other country.
Because because we are a motherfucking Americans. I mean, we're fat and lazy right now.
We're not.
We're a hot fucking mess.
Nope, we're not.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't think so at all. I was watching this documentary once, or I don't know what I was watching. I don't know if it was a documentary. And it was this foreigner, and he was talking about, I think he had like a green card or something like that, and he had gone to college and shit in America, and he's back in the country. I think it was like maybe Russia or Belarus or something like that. But he was explaining what he felt when he was there. He's like, and I think he meant this when he said it. He was like, what the Americans have is an American dream. And it was really funny because, like, around the same time I had watched that, who's that British guy who's pretty popular in politics? He's
Piers
on
Morgan.
What's his name?
Piers Morgan or Sean, what's his name?
Yeah, I think you know what I'm talking about. But anyway,
Sean Murray.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. But
no.
I'll think of his name. But anyway, I had heard that documentary, irrelevant of everything. And then I had heard that one British politician, Nigel Farage. That's who it is.
Yeah.
And then I heard Nigel Farage like say something extremely similar to what that random individual was that I heard on YouTube, and he was talking about the American dream too. And I think, like, in our country, this dream, this American dream, is only prevalent. It only exists in America. You can literally only get it in America, and that's That's what it is.
Because
And
we're a high trust society that, by and large, we trust each other to do honest business with each other.
yeah, to the maximum degree that you
There
could.
are
Yeah,
pockets where things are sort of breaking down, but
yeah.
sometimes that's all we see.
America will not. I think America will last maybe like 500 years to 1,000+ years,
That's
especially
pretty
if
good.
we
That's a good
really
long
take
time. Yeah.
if we really take technology to the next level. I think we're more prepared to do crazy and insane things than China, than Russia, than the European Union. Like, there's no one that can compete
No.
with our aspirations.
That
No
can
one.
compete with our hunk of real estate.
And it falls back on that American dream thing, bro. Like, it's unless another nation can do something like us, and there's never
China,
been.
Russia. Do you think if okay, let's say no nuclear weapons, do you think the
Cares about
United
nuclear
States could take Russia and China at the same time?
Absolutely not a predicament that will ever happen. What needs
But
to happen is Russia.
if it did, could we?
No.
take it?
Russia is our biggest friend.
Huh.
They are actually more trustworthy than the
Do we
Europeans.
trade with Russia?
No, because of all the sanctions and everything we're putting on them.
But they're our biggest friends, but we don't trade with them.
Yes. Yeah.
So naturally, there's no reason to put a tariff on them.
Well, we have sanctions, so there's no point in putting.
Right.
sanctions.
There's right. No point.
So what?
Russia's our friend.
America has been tricked since the 30s, since World War I, World War II, since
After
the 30s,
two- yeah, yeah,
50s, to make Russia seem like they're our greatest threat.
They're-
And actually, they're probably our biggest ally, and our greatest threat is actually the European Union.
Is it? It's not China? I would. All right. I would say China, Russia, European Union, in that order.
So, in terms of damage that they do to us,
No, and I might have to rethink. my
European
order. In
Union is
terms
number
of
one.
if they decided to really fuck with us, could they really fuck with us?
if China,
Barring
stopped-
nuclear weapons.
if China stopped, oh, you're talking about, okay, all right. Nuclear weapons is stupid. No one's going to use them. That's a hyperbolic
We might. It might.
conversation that no one even
Right.
wants to dilly dally with that.
Worst case scenario.
China, if they stopped exporting their products for like 1 or 2 or 3 weeks, American industries would
Shut
fall
down.
apart.
We
We
it
would
would
absolutely fall
grind
apart.
to a halt.
Grind to a motherfucking halt.
It would stop.
But at the same time, if China
Yeah.
did that, they would grind to a halt, and that perceived this perceived idea that China is wholly recognized as a very like, they're structured so much so that they're homogeneous, right? They're like
Well, it's forced.
they're like
They're
a
not
singularity
homogenous. It's
mindset.
forced on them.
Yeah, but so if they fell apart, they would fall fucking apart, whereas America
Huge country.
would survive no problem.
And most of it is very sparsely populated.
What
It's-
does China
like-
have? Like 20 something states? How many states does China have?
I don't know, but I think they have 3 billion, just less than half of the people on Earth.
34. So I was close. So China has 34 states, provinces, whatever you want to call them. If China fell apart today, the Manchurians would go straight gangster again. The
And
Hans
what would they
go
do?
straight gangster again.
They would
all of
unify it
the-
under a different leader? Would they invade something else?
They
What are they
would
going to
split
do
up.
with Vietnam and Korea? What are they going to do with those? What are they going to do with Taiwan?
Nothing. Well, Taiwan, that's an interesting thing.
And the
actually.
South China Sea.
So
They're
Taiwan
building
is-
islands. Aren't they building islands around the South China Sea so they can say
listen
this
to this,
is,
Seven.
this is
Listen to this,
Chinese?
Seven. Shut up. In 2033, Taiwan's 99-year contract is up with Britain. And that just happens to be the 2,000-year anniversary death of Jesus.
I remember you said that on Twitter today. I remember that.
Yes.
Yep.
So,
I think I liked it.
Taiwan, I think they're like TSMC, they're chip making factories. I think what's going to happen is Brussels, HSBC, and all that, they're going to spread the butter. They're going to spread the butter across the United States because they know that China is going to take Taiwan back. And so it is within sanity.
How did they get it in the first place? Was it always theirs?
Well, Taiwan made a deal with the Chinese.
Should we protect Taiwan?
Well,
Should we try to act to prevent China from taking over Taiwan?
No. China needs to take back Taiwan, and the British need to give it back to China. It's as simple as that. It doesn't belong to the British. It fucking belongs to China. And that's a problem. Like, remember the Dutch East India Company, which today you call the Dutch East India Company Brussels of Belgium.
Brussels, the EU, the central banks.
Yeah, remember Brussels controls. That's where the International Criminal Court and all the Hague and all that is.
Hey.
So what's going to happen is the Pacific and the South China Sea and all of those regions around Laos, Vietnam, both the west and the east side of that, all of that is coming up for renegotiation between 2028 and 2033. Because all of those contracts from World War I
are expiring. Yeah.
And so that's why Putin did what he did with Ukraine.
Does Putin deserve the Crimean Peninsula?
Absolutely.
Does he deserve Ukraine?
So do you know the Ukraine means like essentially the etymology, so to speak?
I can point to it on a map.
Well, it's the borderlands. It's the borderlands with Russia. That's
it's the buffer zone between the EU and Russia.
The Ukraine was amalgamated after World War I, during World War II, and the Nazis used their military with the Polish military to take. What they tried to do is they tried to cleave all of Russia from the Black Sea.
Right. To cut off their shipping routes. Yeah.
So they cut off so Ukraine during World War I, World War II, they took the Carpathian Mountains from Hungary. Hungary was created in the Carpathian Mountains, and then today it's owned by Europe. And then you have Lviv, right? Lviv is a northeastern portion of Ukraine. Historically speaking, Lviv going to Poland is the Teutonic Order. It's Polish lands, right? So from the Carpathians to Lviv, you have Poland, and then you have the Hungarians. And on the eastern side of Ukraine, you have the Tartars, and they were essentially the Don, the Don River, the Rus Donbass, the Donbass of Rus, that giant river that's northwest of the Caucasus Mountains, the River Don. That's where the Tartars are from. And from that Tartar region all the way down to Crimea, which is Lunetsky, Donetsky, going past Crimea, going into the Odessa region, that was all Russian territory. Crimea was where the Russian Navy was created. So the first Russian Navy boat to ever be created was in Crimea. And Crimea was taken from Russia and given to the Ukrainians. And you remember, you have the Azov Sea, which is where the Russia-Don River is, to the Crimea area, which is where the largest stronghold of German Nazis still exists to this day in southeastern Ukraine, which is at the Azov Sea, which is south of Kherson. So, like, these are like, and all that territory is Russia.
Share my screen.
I know my land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Crimea.
Yeah.
Ukraine.
And northeast of Crimea is the Azov Sea.
Northeast.
And that's that's the Azov Sea.
Mhm.
And that's where you had all the Tartarians up on the north coast. That's all the Tartars and everybody, and they go into Crimea, and that's where you had most of the Russian speaking folks. But that's where Germany put all their Nazis. That's where all the pogroms happened. When all the Germans went into Ukraine and they started murdering all the Jews of the Dnipro River, they started murdering on both sides of the Dnipro.
So Russia has a reason to be leery of Europe.
Yeah. Because remember, this is
the
the
sort
Ukraine.
of the in-between, isn't it? The Ukraine, Minsk.
So the Ukraine is the steppe. And the steppe, naturally, throughout human history, is a boundary zone between two cultures. Like you had the Yamnaya culture, which is from like the Moldovan regions, the south and southwestern portions of Ukraine. And then you had the Dnipro cultures, which are to the west, which are to the east. That's where the Huns came from. And the Yamnaya cultures, where Sredny Stog is, the Mound Hill burials, that's where they were created. This is where, on the Black Sea, going all the way to Bulgaria, is where the Russian language was created. Actually, you can actually go into Greek lands. That's where all of that happened. That's where Russia came from. You know, the Russian Orthodox Church. So
Istanbul. Look, the Black Sea goes through Istanbul. I didn't know that. Constantinople into the Mediterranean.
The Black Sea was completely and wholly controlled by Russia.
Right. So Russia is largely a landlocked hunk of real estate. So they have to have access to the open seas. And I think they have access in the Mediterranean Sea, on the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea, in the Black Sea, in the North Sea. But they're not a country built to have a navy because they don't really have coastlines.
Yes, they do. Who you said Russia doesn't?
Right, Russia
has
take
one of the largest
Crimea
coastline of any country.
That's it. Let me Google it. Let me zoom out. Russia.
Eastern Ukraine, the Arctic regions of Russia, they have the largest coastlines of
by Sweden, Finland. All right.
Yeah, and it goes all the way east to Japan.
But that's not a very convenient coastline.
Yeah, right there isn't, but it is today, I promise you.
But so they want this bit down here where Ukraine and Crimea are. So they get into the Black Sea, go through Istanbul and whatever this is, into the Mediterranean Sea, into the right.
Yeah.
So, yes, because their northern coastline is shit.
To a degree, yes. To a degree.
It's stealthy. I mean, you know, you can do things in secret there, but not big things. Like build ships and fight battles and ship goods and services easily.
Well, they're doing it because of the controlled northern hemisphere glacier melting that they're doing.
Up here, this is melting?
Well, they're doing it on purpose so they can have ship breakers and have container ships follow right behind the ship breakers. It's all planned. Because they don't want to go around India. The Red Sea is too expensive.
That's what I'm
going
saying.
past the Houthis is too expensive. Going through South Africa is too expensive. So why not just have ship breakers? And you can take your shit straight from Russia to the northern portions of France and Germany and Denmark. Instead of going all the way south, you can just take a 3-day voyage instead of a 37, 38, 39, 40-day voyage.
Right.
Yeah. It's very important. This is a lot of money. Trillions of dollars. Trillions. Trillions.
Estonia, Lithuania, and what's the other one that starts with L? Those right there in the Baltic Sea.
Yeah.
That's coastline.
And they want to cut Russia off from the Baltic Sea.
So these three countries, am I right, cannot join NATO?
They're part of NATO.
Are they? Oh, I thought not 1 inch east.
They are part of NATO by proxy and legitimate membership.
Belarus, what about them?
Yeah.
Go away, kitty. Are they part of NATO?
That was your lighter.
Yeah, that's my cat.
Yeah, and then you have between Poland and Lithuania,
Here.
that Russian autonomous region.
Does it have a name?
Kaliningrad.
Is it called that? There's no name popping up.
Kaliningrad.
Do I have the right spot?
Yeah, it's right there.
All right.
And that's Russia right there.
There's no name popping up, just cities. Look, there's with Lithuania here, and there's others.
Yeah.
But, huh. No kidding.
In Kaliningrad, they have a very important railroad route that connects to Belarus, and you have Lithuania who keeps fucking with it. Because essentially through Kaliningrad and Belarus is one of the most convenient routes for them to get their shit to the Baltic Sea, which goes to the North Sea Empire, which is, Britain and all those guys. Europe, NATO, European Union. Because you pass through the Copenhagen nautical routes of Norway to pass through Denmark to get into the North Sea.
Oh,
it's big money, bro. Big.
From Belarus through Poland, through the Netherlands, through Denmark.
No. Belarus has, through the land route, they have a railroad system that goes through Lithuania that connects straight to Kaliningrad. Through St. Petersburg and all those ports region, that's where you remember when we blew up the pipeline that they had coming?
Yeah, somebody did. From
the Nord Stream pipeline. Yeah, the Nord Stream pipelines come out of.
Let me try to find it. It was
We're
somewhere.
How do you not know?
Between here and there?
No, absolutely. Go back up where you were.
That's Crimea. Okay.
Go back up to where you were. So Nord means Nordic. Why did you go to the Mediterranean Black Sea? Can you put that together in your head?
Wait, ask that again.
The Nord Stream pipelines are Nordic Stream pipelines.
Oh, why did they're up here in the.
Why did you go to the Black Sea and Mediterranean?
I don't know. I got it wrong. Where was it?
Right there, exactly where mouse.
Cursor.
I'm not trying to say anything gay here.
Cursor.
Yeah, and there's two. There's Nord Stream Pipeline 1
and
Nord Stream Pipeline 2. And Nord Stream Pipeline 1, that is controlled by Vladimir Putin's daughter's husband.
Wow, son-in-law.
Son-in-law.
Attaboy. Married the right family. Kind of like Jared Kushner did. Yeah.
Well, he's a Jew. It's different.
Yeah, he's a Jew who got the embassy of Israel moved to Bethlehem,
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. That's right. Jerusalem.
So Jared Kushner's family, they're a part of that Jewish
Uncle
cult
Bibi
that,
Netanyahu. I think
well,
they're
they worship,
related. They're kin.
Jared Kushner's cult worships the female
Cult.
Jew lady. Forget her name. They're not like Hasidic Jews or Zionists.
Yamaka, is that her name? No, that's not her name.
I forget her name. But anyway, she's the only matriarch that's worshipped today. Like they do pilgrimages to her grave, even to this day. That's that whole Jared Kushner cult. It's very different. I don't like their political allegiance is, I would say staying in the shadows but doing very prominent things. Pretty smart group.
All right. So this bit, Spain, Italy, Greece, Romania, not so much. Austria, Poland, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Germany, United Kingdom, Ireland, Spain.
Yeah.
That lot. And then there's a middle bit, Belarus, Ukraine, Romania. And then there's Russia on the other side.
Yeah. The goal of the European Union was to take over Belarus and Ukraine. And by now, they were supposed to have Belarus.
Why is this bit of real estate so strategic? Belarus and Ukraine.
Farmlands, river exports like natural gases, pipelines, things like that. Billions and billions of dollars. You had that Latvian lady, I forget her name. She tried to usurp Belarus, and they tried to get Poroshenko kicked out. And after she lost the election, she fled back to Latvia and went into hiding. And you haven't really seen her since. It's pretty funny.
Did she live?
Yeah, as far as I know, she's still alive today.
Oh, good.
Because you remember Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, they were the Teutonic Order.
What does that mean?
German Templars. Teutons. They were Teutonic.
The fuck is German?
They had the black cross instead of the red one. In the Teutonic Order, after the Crusades were over, the German Crusades happened, and that's how the Teutonic Order was created. And then after the Teutonic Order fell apart, Lithuania and Poland had centuries-long wars. So I've met a few Latvian chicks in my life. They're pretty European standard, I would say.
Sturdy women, are they?
Yeah, Europeans have great tits, dude. Great.
Yeah,
tits.
yeah.
It's a shame you don't like tits. It's
Good
a waste
for them.
of a penis.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. I love history. It's just like it's fascinating to me. I'd rather.
You can tell.
And right where your mouse is where the post office basically started.
Right here, Luxembourg, Germany, Belgium. Here,
really, it was around Aachen, and you can draw a 66-mile circle around Aachen, and that's where all the world's problems come from.
Okay, all right. That's the locus of.
That is the
focal
locus.
Point.
Just type Aachen. Type AACHEN in the top left.
AACH. There it is. Look, popped up.
Yep, Aachen.
How close was I?
Very close.
That's pretty close.
Yep.
Oh.
All the world's problems stem in a 66.6 mile radius around.
Ish, right here.
Yep, 666.
It almost sounds like Aktun.
Well, it is. It's pharaonic. Well, it's pharaonic. That's very astute of you, Mr. Seven. Because you remember Pharaoh went to Switzerland in Aachen. That's where and Aachen is where what's his face is buried? Charlemagne.
Let's see.
So that's Charlemagne's burial.
Right here?
Yeah. So
Somewhere
remember,
here?
Charlemagne was the only person ever in world
Sushi.
history to combine all the houses of France, Germany, and the southern European regions. And then when he died, of course, his 3 sons split everything back up. So it's all Charlemagne's fault. Well, really, the Vatican. But yep.
That's where it started, right there.
Well, that's where the Holy Roman Empire put their stake in the ground and said, I'm going to run it from here, essentially. In the 1400s, or late 1400s, early 1500s, 400 years after the castle builders started their thing.
There are no castles in the United States of America.
There are, you can call them forts, military
Monuments and
forts,
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
but you're only going to really find those in the South. And today,
Out here, where the Indians
we have
were.
our fort monuments, but in the Floridas, in the Gulf of America, and all that, you still have the early
It
brick
says it.
mafia forts
Okay, dollar. Look, Gulf of
when
America.
American brick mafia hooked up with the early railroad mafia guys who controlled the government. Oh yeah.
Look at that. These 13 colonies. What were they? Vermont, New Hampshire,
Vermont, no.
Maine.
It was New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, Philadelphia, Virginia, North Carolina,
Maryland, Delaware,
Carolina,
New
South
Jersey.
Carolina, and Georgia, right?
No, not that far south.
Maryland, Connecticut, Jersey,
Island.
New Jersey, Maryland,
Rhode Island.
Virginia, and Massachusetts.
Okay, there it is.
Right? That's all of them.
Sure, yeah. That was more than 13. So you must have gotten all of them right.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So the Frenchies came where?
Through the South,
here,
Florida, Louisiana, North Carolina.
North Carolina. That's up here. All right.
So it's a big swath of land.
All right. So
all the ports.
North Carolina. Oh, yeah. I see. All around Florida and then up to Louisiana.
Yep.
So this chunk.
You remember you also had, for a very short time, you had the French East Indies, which kind of fell apart because they weren't as organized as the British and the Dutch. And that's how you got like the Bahamas and all that stuff.
That's down here somewhere in it.
Yeah.
Where are the Bahamas?
And the only thing that the French really held was French Ghana, and maybe a couple other strongholds up the coast, like Mexico and shit like that. They didn't really have much. The Portuguese, I am kind of lying. French/Portuguese, especially at the sugarcane plantations.
Where were those?
Shit like that. No. I forget who the French Indies sold their shit off to. I'd have to look that up.
Richie Dupe. Sup, J Dollars.
Huh?
Richie Dupe asked you, sup, J Dollars.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
See, this video of real plasma cannon. Haldare, I think I have. Like this guy took these two water jugs, these great big water jugs for office coolers, put them together and made a plasma cannon and fuck shit up. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, did you see that guy who 3D printed the laser gun? It's like a regular Nintendo gun, and you put like a battery from a drill. Did you see that?
Maybe.
He 3D printed a casing for this laser thing, and he put a battery drill on it. And from like 15, 20 feet, he was able to laser metal in half.
Shut up. Like a laser rifle.
Yeah, but a pistol, a handgun.
Dark Gift is in the chat.
Oh shit, Anthony, what's up, bro? I hop on. What's up, Howlers? Thank you for still being here, sir. I asked him if he's still. What did I say earlier? I forget what I said.
Renee Dupe says the EU isn't like the US, though. Each country is very, very different.
The EU.
Our states are very, very different. Tennessee is different from New York. It's different from California. It's different from Wisconsin, from Florida. They're different.
Well, you heard what Trump said. Trump said basically that the European Union, NATO, and all that was designed to fuck America after World War I, World War II.
I don't know if it was designed to, but
No.
that's what ended up happening. That's what happened. That's the end result of it. And yeah, it's enough. Do we need NATO? Do we need the UN? Do we need...
No. Well, because they want to make the United States of Europe. And they had an opportunity.
Fuck Europe. Fuck Europe.
You had the 17 and 1800s to create the United States of Europe. You could not do it. And
you missed your chance, pal.
You definitely ain't going to do it in 2025. It's impossible. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It just ain't going to happen. Oh yeah, Halder sent a link earlier. What did he say?
Clicked it. Right.
Can't click on it.
Now for our last final piece of the day, we got a very handcrafted, beautiful, one of a piece of
Elder said, I think I saw that laser gun video. The plasma cannon video was pretty cool. It actually got taken down hours after it was uploaded. It only came back 3 weeks ago. Well, that's cool. 30-foot range, a plasma gun. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can, like, lasers are pretty common now, I would say. Like, there's so many badass things they can do with lasers, bro.
Are lasers considered arms? Under the Constitution, are we our right to keep and bear them shall not be infringed? Lasers are arms, aren't they? They're weapons. Isn't that what arms is?
I think they're categorized under exotic weapons, space lasers, and stuff like that. So I think they're under a different category.
That sucks. Which congressman do I write to get that
as it
changed?
turns out, it's technically.
What do you want them to exist?
I want I want to exercise my right to keep and bear them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the problems with what they're being faced with, like these guys who can 3D print like an apparatus that can hold a laser, like how do you manage that? Because laser technology is so common now, and the like there's so many different variations of lasers. Like this guy right here has it like shoots a thing and then it hits the target, but it causes a plasma.
There's that much energy in that laser, and it's that
Yeah.
precise.
Yeah.
Right. So theoretically, lasers can go forever.
Well, but then
In
there's
a
other
vacuum.
lasers. There's other lasers. The beam that they shoot out, it's completely invisible to
Right.
your eyesight, and you can only see
Right.
it with a certain set of goggles.
Right.
So like and then you have the laser technology that's all on the laser ships now, or on the laser ships, on the Navy ships now. We have that laser technology that DARPA uses. It can shoot down drones and shit. You know what I'm talking about? Those lasers. All you got to do is point it at it, and it
Don't the
heats up the internal.
those C-Rams, those big fucking guns on turrets, don't they use lasers to target the aircraft? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, another good point. Yeah. Oh, Anthony's in the back. Well, we've been talking about a lot of variations of things.
What is
sir?
I forgot.
What's up?
How have you been?
Good.
Hey, Anthony, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Seth?
I'm well, thank you.
Your vacation from YouTube?
Yeah, well, I've been too busy for fucking YouTube, man. Like, seriously. I'm not even really on Twitter at the moment.
It's been a hoot.
I just saw your DM now when I opened up my browser because Twitter was one of the tabs on my browser, and I just saw. Are you still pretending to be busy? You're such a dick.
Yeah. So, anything special going on in the world on your side of the
a lot
ocean?
Work drama going on.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's been interesting. And I'm not involved in it.
Hooray! Just watch it.
I don't get involved in drama in real life. I swear to God. All my drama is literally comic book related. It's the fucking stupidest shit.
Yeah, you're busy. You got stuff to do. How's it going?
Good.
Everything's on track?
Yeah. Apparently there was a hiccup with the mugs, but I don't think it was on my end with the file that I made. Doc messaged me. Was that today? Did he message me today? Or was it yesterday? I don't know. But either way, he's talking with either. I don't know. I gotta reach out to Doc and see what's going on with that. But otherwise, those should be done. I finally got a new Jake Bishop phone number, and got all these business cards with the old one made, and I'm like, I've been painstakingly. I'm not wasting the money on these cards, so let me turn my camera on. I've been fixing the phone number on it. You can barely tell, but I printed out on those address labels.
Make them big, $8.
and you put
Investigation. I like that.
449 on there.
PM
No,
thing.
no. That's supposed to look like a coffee. See here, I'll show you.
Yeah, it does.
That,
I
that
get it.
was the original,
That looks great.
and that's
I like that.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
So you can barely tell that new phone number is a sticker. What you call it? I tried doing it with just the last two digits, but I couldn't line it up really well. Like it looks a little off, so I had to. Oh, yeah. See, it looks like the 1-1 looks like it's a little higher than it should be.
Yeah.
So I had to, just do the whole number. Yeah, so whatever. Yeah, so I've been going through. Yeah, I've been doing that, and what else? Got the tapestries for the Dillard cover for Lightbringer ordered. The Dillard Lightbringer Pariah crossover prints came in. The new batch of A Damn Dirty Things came in.
Bro, that's a lot to keep up with.
I'm waiting on the proof copy of Lightbringer 2 to come in. That should be here sometime in the next week.
And it's just you.
Yeah. I finished 2 more pages of Hunting Alice. And I think I have the images I want for Billy Powermax's book for the trailer. I just got to go through them again. And he's got to get me the music. He said he has some music he wants. I got to call him. He called me earlier, but I was like, I don't even know what I was doing. But when I looked at my phone, I had seen he had called like a couple of hours prior. And I was like, I'm not calling him this late. I'll wait until tomorrow. I'll call him or whatever. Because that's going to be a new book that we're going to launch. Yeah, I'm busy, man. And I got to reach out. I got to find a way to get in touch with Dillard. I don't have his phone number. And he hasn't been on Twitter. But I got it. I want to see when I'm gonna start fulfilling his Canadian tussle again. I have them all boxed up in Geminis. I just need to sync up with him to get some more money to get shipping labels.
Right.
For postage. And I don't know how to get a hold of him.
Have you checked the postage prices recently? Have they changed at all, or are they still the same?
I haven't checked in a minute.
Curious if they've started to go down or not.
Well, that's why I want to get a hold of Dylan, 'cause I'm going to be starting up, the new batch of A Damn Dirty Things I gotta send out. I might as well make one trip to the post office if possible and send out some Canadian tussles too.
Right.
Plus, I need the original artwork for the cover that he did. Because once I start fulfilling Lightbringer, I got to send that out to the person who bought it.
Have you been able to get a hold of Dillard recently at all?
No, that's what I was just saying. He hasn't been on Twitter, and I don't have his phone number, and I don't know any other way to really get a hold of him. I don't want to reach out to his wife because that feels weird.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I have his address. Maybe I'll just send him a postcard. like nigga, call me.
Yeah. Did y'all see this is the original version of America?
I saw that little fella cooking a fried chicken in a Tennessee pan. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's charming.
Yeah.
Wholesome as fuck.
Yeah.
I got a DM from somebody asking me if I'm leaving.
Leaving what?
Really?
I guess the scene.
Oh, don't go.
And I said, no, why? They were like, well, you haven't been around in a minute. And apparently somebody said that. Somebody said I was leaving.
I'm going to say it was a female.
No.
That DM'd me?
Yeah,
It's a male.
female.
Male.
I'll let you guys fight it out.
It was Angela.
I win.
Yeah, apparently, I don't know. Somebody went.
Leaving what, Dark Gift? Leaving. What are you gonna stop doing? What are you gonna do? What are you leaving?
That's what I want to know. Like who's saying that I'm leaving and when am I leaving? And
You sound like you're busy and you've got things to do and you like doing them. It's just
yeah.
so goofy.
And I had some nice weather. I did some shit like around the house outside.
Yep.
You know, cleaning up the yard. I had like a bunch of old grills. I had 2 old grills and a lawnmower sitting behind one of my sheds. That like I took one of the grills to the recycling
Attaboy.
center.
Yeah.
The lawnmower, I don't
Get
know.
it running.
I thought about it.
Just
needs a new-
WD-40.
It needs a new pull string, and it's been sitting out in the weather for years.
It's
I
gonna
think
go
probably-
black.
Yeah.
I thought about maybe
tightening.
like just putting it on Facebook Marketplace for like $20 and like, you know, as a fixer-upper for somebody who wants like, you know, who has more time to fix
Right.
a lawnmower, you know?
What's the least you'll take? On Facebook Marketplace, when I put something on there, it's just like, what's the least you'll take?
Yo, it's a lawnmower, $20. Come get it. Otherwise, I'm just taking it to the fucking
Thing.
recycling center. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other
Yeah,
grill,
I
I have to get picked up. I got to pay $25 for them to come pick it up, but it's worth it.
Isn't there some place you can drive it to and dump it?
I can't. It's big. It's a big grill. It's like 30 years old. It's rusted out, but it's huge. I can't fit it in my.
Yeah, you got a
SUV.
car and shit. You know.
Oh.
Well, I have an SUV, but still, it's not. You know, it's not like a pickup where I can just stick it in the back of a pickup. You know.
Strap it down and carry on. Yeah.
They're reopening the because we're by a state highway and we're in a pretty rural area. But when they introduced all the blue trash cans at the end of the road, they shut down all of the big dump areas. Like, just shut them down. And that really fucked with a lot of people around here. And so apparently, like next
People
month,
would
they're-
just take their trash to the dump. I did that.
Yeah.
I remember I lived
Yeah.
in Sevier County. And where I lived, I had to take my trash to a dump because I paid county taxes. So there was several of them located around the county. I had to take it there. So I'd take it myself, but I had a Ford Ranger pickup truck. So
yeah, I got a trailer. I just take it on a trailer. So I'm excited that they open back up. Pretty cool. Petty shit, but man, throwing away stuff in the South, bro. You got a little blue ass trash can, man. You're like, fuck. So much shit to throw away sometimes.
yeah,
Yeah.
That little trash can ain't gonna
a
cut
lot
it.
of shit. Yeah.
And what else did I? Oh, you know what else I did? So the big grill was actually next to my shed, and it was blocking the little shelters I have for the stray cats.
Oh.
What you call it? Because I don't want the township to, because the township at one point tried to get me to fucking pay licenses for all the stray cats that lived behind
Wow,
my shed.
each like $10
Yeah.
each or something. Yeah.
No, like
Cool.
it's like it's like $30 each.
Oh, wow.
For like eight cats. I'm like, they're not my cats.
Bastards.
I was
That's
arguing with the
$240.
with the one animal control lady on my front like right like my front stoop. And I'm going, they're not my cats. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. She's like, we heard you feed them. I'm like, everybody feeds them. I'm not the only one that feeds them.
Spread
she's
it out
like,
amongst
she's
all
like-
the residents.
I like you telling me that she's like, you're telling me they're not your cats. I'm like, yep, not mine. As I'm saying this, one of the cats is rubbing up on my leg.
Right. Where am I human?
And like, so because I'm getting rid of the grill and I moved it towards the front of the house.
Why don't they track down the resident who let the cat out in the first place to have babies?
Well, actually, these particular 5 out of the 7 were born on my property. Yeah.
That makes them yours. That kind of makes them yours. If they were born,
no. What made them mine? What made them mine?
If your parents are aliens and they're born in the United States,
hey, listen, Trump got rid of that law.
It's on your property. It's the right thing to do, Anthony. They are your kids.
What made them kind of mine was my
Beta.
sister, who works with rescues, right? So when we were having the cat problem, there was like 20. It was like after the 2 litters were born the last time, there was like 20 stray cats. And I reached out to my sister. I was like, yo, you got to help me trap these cats and get them over to the ASPCA.
Trap them, put it in the SUV, take them
so
to
she hooks me up with the rescue that she volunteers with, and like the one woman comes over, and they set up a bunch of traps. And she's like, okay, so what you got to do is you got to feed them, with the bowl a little bit, like a couple of feet away from the trap, and every day just move it a little closer and closer, and until they trust you enough so that when you put it in the trap, they'll go in the trap. So that's what we did, right? So we trapped them all, right? And out of like the 20-something cats, like 7 of them, they all got, most of them got adopted, except for like the 7 that they brought back. They said, we can't get these ones adopted. They're too big.
So what did they do with them? Just dump them back?
They put them back on my property. They spayed them because they're all female.
Vaccinate them?
I don't know if they got vaccines, but they're definitely fixed.
Okay.
And then they snip the one ear so that other rescuers know that they've already been fixed, so they don't have to trap them or whatever.
And gave them back to you. So they are yours.
So, like, the 2 I can understand, because the one is like the grandmother, and the other one is like the mother. But like the other 3 or 4, they were all kittens. I'm like, what do you mean they're too big? And they're super sweet. Like I could pet them. You know what I mean? The other 2 I can't pet. They won't let me go near them.
Fuck 'em.
But because they're old, they've been in the wild all their life.
Right, feral. But the kids ain't.
Right, but now they've been outside for the last like 6 years. So, but yeah. So the township tried. So then my sister goes, "You have to keep feeding them."
Yeah.
I'm like, why do I have to keep feeding them?
Because they're yours.
They rely on you now because you've been feeding them the whole time, since they've been born, trying to get them trapped. And I'm like, Jen, you didn't tell me this. I did not sign on to be like.
Yes, you did. The first time you fed them, the first time you took care of them, bro. They were born on your property. They're yours.
So needless to say, the township was trying to get at me. So I went down to the animal control and I was like, listen, I've been calling you for years about these cats, and I was like, because I feed them to trap them, you guys want to all of a sudden charge me? And I was like, I cleaned up. There was 20-something stray cats. Now there's 7. I did your job for you.
Attaboy, attaboy.
They never friggin' they
made a difference.
They haven't bothered me since. But I still don't need to like antagonize them.
You still have 7, and you still have 7.
Yeah, well, yeah. 2 main ones. The other ones come around every so often. But yeah, so I have the shelters, and I've been hiding in the shelters. But now that I moved the shed, what was it? Last summer, we had a big storm, and lightning hit the tree in my backyard, and the top of the tree fell off and landed on the property next to me, taking out 2 of the wooden. It was like a wooden fence, 2 of the 8-foot panels.
You're responsible. That was your tree.
Yeah. No, I paid for the guy to come chop up the tree and get rid of it. And I offered to pay for the 2 new panels because it was for the EMT squad. That's right next to me. It's the fence that fences in their parking lot. And they actually wound up getting Lowe's to donate. I didn't have to wind up paying for the new panels because Lowe's wound up. So they finally fixed it. I took the old panels, the ones that were damaged, and I cut them down and made like little mini fences running along the side of my shed. So now that's blocking the shelters, hiding the shelters. Okay. So that was something else I did on one of my days off. Little project.
Did you take pictures?
I didn't, but I can.
When I was,
yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
When I was taking the trash down the road earlier, Anthony, I put some heavy shit in this because we got 2 big trash cans, and when I lifted that shit like this, the heavy stuff shifted backwards, and it fucking lifted the lid up and smacked me straight in the fucking face.
Oh,
bitch slapped by a trash can.
Yeah, my fucking eyebrow is dying. Like behind my left eye is hurting. Motherfucker.
That sucks.
I hope your eyeball doesn't fall out. Look at that eyeball.
Now I'm gonna have to. Oh, and then I did some modifications to the display. The display. I don't want to call it a box, but because it's really not a box. But for lack of a better term, the display box that I made for the tapestries from when I went to that con with Elasmat last September. I don't know if you guys.
I kind of remember.
Yeah, I made like a display thing so I could hang the tapestries behind me with a black light attached to it. It was a little bit of a pain in the butt 'cause I had to put it together to get it there. Take it apart and then put it together when I got there. So I put it all back together, and then I sawed the middle in half, and then put hinges on it, so now it folds up.
Old school.
So yeah, so that was another. So this like next con I go to, I could just like fold it up, throw it in
easier
the back
to
of
carry.
the SUV, yeah, and just pop it up because that was time consuming putting it together at the con and stuff. But yeah, I've been keeping busy.
Do you like going to the cons? Do you? Is it worth your while? Do you make enough money? Is it worth your travel time? Is it worth
Well, I only did the one because it's hard for me to get off on weekends. But
did you like it? Was it a good
experience? I did. Yeah, I think the benefit really is the networking. I made enough money to cover my table and go out to eat and have a couple of drinks afterwards.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
So it really comes down to, the networking, and we networked with a couple of people. Got to meet some of the fans that lurk and don't talk in the chat.
Yeah, how dare they?
Yeah, no, they were cool as shit. Yeah, but they knew who we were. They came specifically to see us. That was cool. Why is she yelling at you about cigarettes?
Damn it, Seven. I've been dying for. Maybe she quit smoking, and now that she sees me smoking, like yes, Anthony, and how you do it, like yes, she wants a cigarette.
I didn't even see you smoking a cigarette. Yeah.
Huh.
And now I think I'm gonna have to take my one dog to the vet.
Oh.
Yeah, something wrong with his back leg.
Bless.
It's weird because he'll walk around fine.
When he
and
runs.
then I'll let him outside, and when you go out the side door, like even the side door has a little 3-step stoop, right? Mm-hmm. And he'll go outside and he goes out fine, but when I go to get them back in, he won't come up the stairs because coming up the stairs, I guess he's putting his weight on his back legs.
Oh, yeah.
And he's yelping.
Oh, bless him. He's in pain when he's going up the stairs.
Right. So I got to pick him up to bring him up the stairs. But then as soon as I pick him up and put him up on the landing,
he's fine. He bounces away and just, yeah.
So I don't know.
Is he a drama queen or is he genuinely in pain?
Are you talking about like an animal?
No,
my dog.
His dog.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, he's genuinely in pain.
Oh.
Yeah.
I can't care for animals like that, bro. I got no time for that shit, bro. Done.
Well, it's been a few days. It's been like 3 days. I'm thinking maybe he sprained his ankle or something.
So,
So
it's
I'm
in the
gonna
bottom, it's in his foot. It's not like in his knee or in his hip.
It seems like it's in his like from at least his knee down somewhere.
Knee, okay.
Yeah. So I'm just waiting. I'm gonna wait. Yeah, because like I said, when he's not going up and down the stairs. I mean, dogs have
fine,
a high tolerance of pain. They don't like show pain unless they're in a lot of pain. So he might be still in pain, but not to the point where he's like if I pick up the bag of dog treats, like
How old is your dog?
He'll be 13 in August.
Yeah,
That's
man,
old,
he's got
bro.
arthritis like a motherfucker, bro. That dog old as shit.
Yeah. God
Yeah,
bless him.
but I mean, Zara, who's gonna be 12 in like a week,
That's old.
is
It's a big dog old too. Don't little dogs live longer?
It depends on the breed, but yeah, she and this is me self-diagnosing her, but I believe she has this thing. I forget what it's called, but it's like the word larynx and paralysis are in the title of this.
Can't breathe.
Thing, right? Yeah. Well, that could be the worst part of it, but it also what it does is it affects the long nerve in their body that runs from like their neck to their hind legs. So the hind legs give out. And she makes it up and down the stairs. She struggles to do it, but
Is there a nerve that long that goes from the back of your neck down to your hip?
All your nerves go to your spine.
Yeah.
Dummy.
All right.
But it paralyzes their larynx, and like it can suffocate them if it gets too bad. And like she's starting to like hack a little bit, so I might have to take her to the vet too. Because there's apparently a surgery they can do where they take the paralyzed side. They go in, they take the paralyzed side, and they stitch it up so it's up all the time. But it makes them permanently mute.
Man, I can't.
And depending on how, I don't know how invasive that surgery is, but you know.
Jay Dollar, you have never had pets. Have you ever had a pet?
Yeah, I've always had pets. Always.
I mean, it's like this.
What are you not understanding about?
If it's minor, like if it's like one of those things where they can just do like a small incision and go in and do it, maybe I'll do it. But if it's one of those things where it's gonna be like super invasive and they gotta like lift the skin up over like her jaw or something like that, and like it, I don't know if I'll do it. I mean,
and the recovery and the hours
right. That's what I mean.
post-surgery,
She's
post-surgical
12 years
care.
old. Yeah, she's 12 years old. Why am I gonna do that to her? You know what I mean? I'll
That's
just wait till.
old. Good life.
Yeah. I'll just let her live it out until it gets bad, and then make that call when it comes to it. You know what I mean?
Oof. Yeah.
But with him, like if there's something I could do, like if they're like, oh yeah, he sprained his ankle or he's got arthritis, here's an anti-inflammatory, you know, or whatever.
Man, I ain't doing none of that shit. Courtney, you coming on the stream or what? Crazy bitch.
But you wouldn't give your dog an anti-inflammatory?
Let them die.
That's all up to the
You're a
woman.
heartless
The woman decides the animal's outcome, I would say.
Yeah, well, I don't have a woman that make that decision, Jay Dollar.
So when Heather's dog died, Heather shot it in the head.
Well, how did the
Up on
dog
the hill.
die? Did it get run over?
No, he was getting old, and he
So instead of taking it to a vet, she shot it.
Shut up! I'm trying to answer you. He got an eye and an ear infection. In that eye and the ear infection collapsed his eye in, and that's when we knew, because he was kind of old, well over 10 years old, and he was a lab, so he's quite large. So I took Heather up on the hill, and that was the first time she sacrificed one of her animals for misery.
Oh.
Yeah. I prefer. I had this old lady friend way back in the day, and she kind of like matured my idea on animals, I suppose. like right now we have 4 cats. They kill, like, we have no mice problems around here. But I've never been emotionally invested into an animal.
Into pets, yeah. And
I had an iguana. I had an iguana named Iggy from under the umbrella tree. And I killed him accidentally because I gave him a liver disease by giving him like too much broccoli and stuff like that. And,
but that wasn't heartless. You didn't mean to. You didn't know. It was just ignorance. You were ignorant.
We've gone through a lot of dogs. So.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I can't do the whole like take care of it myself thing here in Jersey. All right.
Yeah.
Jersey, you can't even pump your own gas in Jersey.
Well, here we've taken animals to the shelter to be euthanized. We have totally done that, but like with Heather's dog, her personal dog, it was
shot him.
More of an esoteric thing for her to do the duty that she should have done as opposed to giving it to someone else. So she felt it was a compelling issue, I would say.
Right.
And it's more satisfying for her to have that type of closure, like with the animal, as opposed to like taking it to the shelter, putting it behind a door, and some random person.
They don't let you stay in the room?
I don't think down here in the South, I don't think they allow that.
I think you can.
I don't know about.
I've been in the room. Any animal or like a dog or cat that I had to put down, and I had to stay. You know, I was allowed to stay in the room with them while they did it.
Yeah, my neighbor Price, he has 2 big old white. I don't know, not Rottweilers, but they look like it. I don't know what they're called.
Weimaraners.
And he had to put one of them down, bro. He was like emotionally distraught.
Yeah,
crying over him. I've never cried over an animal.
The first animal that was my dog. It was like my dog that I had to take to. You know, I was like 22 when I came due, and I had to. You know, we took the ride out. My mother drove. It was me, my mother, and my sister, and we drove down there. I stayed in the room. And I was fine up until the vet was like, I'll give you a few minutes after it was done, I'll give you a few minutes by yourself with her. And they left the room after it was done. And I was fine until then, because then it was like, I felt like when I left the room, I was leaving her alone, even though she was gone. You know what I mean? Like I knew in my head what like, you know, my emotions were doing to me made no sense. But like I had a hard time like getting myself to be like, okay, I can leave now. Time to go home. You know what I mean? It was you know, that one was rough. But that was the first one. That was the first animal that I had to do that with. The other ones were a little bit easier. You know.
Yeah, it's dealing with death.
Spend 5 or 10 minutes with them afterwards, and then go, okay, you can take them away now.
Dealing with death. I don't have animal affection like that. Like it doesn't. I mean, it's definitely sad. There's a sadness. There's an emotional connection, yeah. But like, I could never.
Well, that dog too. That dog went with me everywhere. Like I would take that dog with me, like, and hang out with my friends. You know what I mean? Like that dog went. That dog went. You know, that was like, you know, like the boy and his dog. That whole like cliche. That was me and Mickey. You know. She was always sitting shotgun in my car. You know. Hal Deer says, it's going to suck when my cat dies. She's around 16 years old, still healthy, but she's slowing down and starting to show her age.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a cat guy.
I had a cat live like 19 years.
I'm Josh Harmon. I'm a musician. I'm a content creator.
Yeah, we had a cat that lived like 22, 23 years or whatever. We called her Mama Cat. And what was really crazy, her ass disappeared for like 2 or 3 years, and then she like showed up again. And then I remember like X amount of years later after she disappeared and came back, she still had like a staple in her stomach from when she got fixed. I mean, this cat like lived through everything, bro. Like it was crazy. But she was cool. She used to steal like quarters and nickels and dimes. Like she would steal like shiny things and take them. It was weird. She was a weird cat, but she was pretty cool.
I have one stray cat.
I have.
Go ahead, Simon.
I have an 11-year-old cat and a 1-year-old cat here.
Oh, the 11-year-old must hate the 1-year-old.
They don't not like each other. The 1-year-old is an outside cat. The 11-year-old is an inside cat.
The 1-year-old probably has a lot more energy than what the 11-year-old would like.
She does.
I have.
Yeah, she does.
I got 4 cats now. It's Spartacus, Apollo, Artemis.
She bites lizards' heads.
And I forget the 4th one, but I just call him Rat Cat because he eats everything. But he has a Roman name too. All of my cats have like Roman names.
Speaking of cats that come back, like so. This one cat, I can't remember if he was like from the same litter as who I call Grandma now, the grandma of all the cats, or the same litter as the mother of the cats, of the rest of the cats. But he was a sibling to one of those 2 cats, because the stray problem was going on for years before I finally took some action.
A cousin brother.
Well, he was definitely a brother of one of them, but like.
Right.
He took off. A big, bulky orange cat. Like he took off. The males tend to roam, and he took off and like was gone for like a year and a half, and then just showed up again one day, and then like he was like around for a few days, and then was gone again for like another 6 months, and then showed up again, and then was gone again for like another year and a half. Like he just pops up, every like year or so. He just pops back up. But he always comes back here, and he doesn't recognize anybody no more, and none of them recognize him. But they all kind of like know that they're related, I think, because
they smell him. They smell that he's somebody.
They don't fight.
It smells like family.
Yeah, they don't fight. Like
smells like
if an outside cat shows up, the other cats get territorial of my yard. But when that guy shows up, they're very wary.
Honey.
They're weary. They keep their distance, but they don't fuck with him, and he don't fuck with them. Sorry, J Dollar.
Yeah, we got a cat around there. It's like that too. Like, it's a sexy ass little black cat, fluffy and everything. Probably looks like a $300-400 cat, but he's just she. It just runs around all these properties, and she's extremely nice to like all the cats around here. And it's really weird because all of our areas we have estates. I don't live in an estate neighborhood, but the way the neighborhood was set up is there are estates, like 3 to 6 acres per property. So we have these huge properties connected to all of us. And bro, you have to have cats out here for all the mice and stuff like that.
Mighty Healthy says cats are very efficient killers. I tell you what, and speaking of mice, I'm going to be honest with you.
You must have cats out here.
I get mice in this house sometimes.
None.
Right? I got 6 cats that live outside my house and 3 dogs that live inside, and I still get mice. I'm like, you motherfuckers better start pulling your weight, because I'll go outside and see a half-eaten bird. I'm like, if you can catch a bird, you can catch a fucking mouse. You know what I mean?
All right. So Barney has delivered here in the garage a couple of bowls, a mole, a mouse, and a lot of lizards.
Oh.
She is a.
I did go outside. It was like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I gone outside, and I went to the back of the house to feed them, and I noticed that the one who's really like one of the 2 friendly ones, like the 2 main ones that like stay on the property most of the time, that I could pet.
Grandkids.
She didn't follow me like she would normally follow me. She kept running back to the street, and then running back to the tree, and then running back to the street, and running back to the tree. And I went all the way to the back of the house, put the food in the bowl, and then I came up and I saw she was messing with some. And I grabbed my flashlight. I go in the house, I grab my flashlight, I come back out, and she's fucking toying with a mouse, like
always have your camera
sadistically
ready.
Toying with a mouse.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm like, yeah, I feel bad for the mouse.
Film
but
it.
At least the cat's finally doing its job.
Film it. What's wrong with
Bro,
filming it?
we have a chipmunk. His name is Eric.
Get the camera
And he's lived in our house for like 5 years now. And one of my cats brought him in, but didn't, because you know, like cat saliva,
didn't kill him.
they'll paralyze anything. Cat saliva is poisonous to every single animal.
Are you sure?
So like it'll paralyze a squirrel, it'll paralyze a lizard, it'll paralyze a chipmunk and shit like that. And then so right now we actually have a second chipmunk in our house that we haven't been able to catch. So for like the last 2 days I've left the front door open. Even at night when I go to bed, I leave the front door open. Hoping that little motherfucker will run out of the house. Because we have Rat Cat. His name is Atticus. That's his name. But I call him Rat Cat.
You have a rat. You have a rat named
No, I have a
Atticus.
cat named Atticus, but I call him Rat Cat because he's the murderer of the property. He murders
Good for him.
every rodent known to man. And
Film
we were
it.
looking for this fucking chipmunk that's in our house right now as I speak, and we found
Pet chipmunk or
a
wild
chipmunk.
chipmunk?
That's the chipmunk number 2, and we found 2 dead bird carcasses, like under my third desk. We got a couple desks in the house.
Not a
And he's, like,
mockingbird. I
saving
hope.
dead birds, like creating a little cat layer of dead animals that I had to clean up. Looking for this
Atticus
fucking
is
chipmunk that's still in the
not
house.
killing mockingbirds.
Low blood glucose level.
Yeah, there's dogs and cats that they can sense when you have like cancer, but they can sense stuff like that. Like, my grandmother had
smell it.
vertigo, and when she would stay they were living in Florida, and they would come stay with us for a month when we were all still living at home. The one cat that lived to be 19.
Wow.
Knew. I mean, it wasn't that old at this point, but he knew when like a vertigo attack was about to happen, and like would like run up to my grandmother and get right in her face.
Right.
As soon as he did that, we like we knew we would all go we would run over
And
to
you
my
knew
grandmother.
the dog would take care of her.
Yeah. So.
Best she could.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's up, guys?
What's up, Courtney?
Hey, Courtney.
Hi, Courtney.
Hi.
Four
Those
eyes.
are my eyeballs. They
Yeah,
look like boobs
there's
at the
4
bottom.
of them.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. It's from the eye doctor. I just thought it was cool.
Your left eye seems weird.
Yeah,
you should get that looked
my eyes are messed up. Anthony, were you saying a cat or a dog that was 19?
A cat. Cat was 19.
My cat lived to be 19.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. My dog just turned 11 and I'm freaking out.
And some make the everyday effortless. Discover the new.
What's everyone up to tonight?
My one dog is gonna be 12 on the 13th.
Really? What kind of dog?
Husky.
Gay dog.
Oh.
And the other one will be 13 in August, and the other one will be 10 in September.
You got 3. Dang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a mother, a father, and a daughter.
Oh. Are any of them having health problems at that age yet?
I was just saying, Zara, I think, I mean, I self-diagnosed, but I believe that Zara has, hold on, I'll tell you exactly what it's called. Larynx.
Yeah, I got no time. So, like when Heather's dog died, and my mom's like Chihuahua died. I'm like, bro, no more dogs, no more.
It's awful when they die. It's so bad.
Laryngeal paralysis. I believe that's
in
what
the
she
throat,
has.
in the vocal cords or something.
It affects like the long nerves in their body. One of them being the one that runs from the neck to the hind legs, and basically the larynx and the voice box become weak or paralyzed.
Interesting.
My dog just, I don't know what his deal is. If it's like a, he's just being like defiant or something, but he has never had problems with like peeing in the house. And he started doing that here when he's with me and up back in Steamboat when he's with his dad. And I don't know if it's because he's getting old.
With his dad, you're such a woman. Ugh.
Yeah, well, we share custody, so it's like dad and mom.
It's so weird.
What was my ex-husband? With
Well,
the boy.
you're not really the mom of the dog, by the way. You know?
He is my child. And I'll tell you why. Because there was around a time where they thought I couldn't have kids. It turns out I could. Assholes. But I had a B12 deficiency that was really bad and nobody diagnosed it. But so I wanted this dog. I wanted a Boston Terrier really bad, and I was looking and looking and looking. And
Boston Terrier.
You there?
Oh, I cut out for a sec. Sorry.
Yeah.
Whoa.
You there?
Still there?
Yeah. Courtney. No.
I'm surprised my Starlink has held up so long.
Why did you get Starlink? It's so gay.
It's better than what it was.
So let's hop to another subject while Courtney figures out what's up. What do y'all think of the upcoming Bill Maher and Donald Trump interview?
Upcoming? I thought they already did it.
Well, I think they recorded it, but it's not out yet. So
I heard that Bill Maher presented Donald Trump pages full of mean things that Donald Trump said about Bill Maher. And then Donald Trump took them and signed them and handed them back.
Yeah.
Trump really is one of the most effective politicians, whatever you think of the policy and him as a person, just as a politician, just understanding that always lean in to being more who you are.
Yeah.
The people are not savvy about issues, but they smell a phony a mile away. And that kind of shit, nobody else does it. You know, there's a couple of times when, look, I've been his biggest critic for good reason. And when he got reelected, I said, I'm not going to pre-hate anything. And then the first week I said, well, there's lots of things I hate because I do. Okay, there's some things I don't hate also, but the way he can do that and sometimes kind of make me go, oh man, I got to give it up. Like when he did that thing where the guy came in from the Taliban and he said, this is an aerial picture of your house.
Oh, yeah.
If
that was
during our
badass.
withdrawal, one American is hurt, just know I know where you live. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
can we just play the music now? Because I don't care. It's Donald Trump and he's the worst person ever, blah, blah, blah. I fucking love that. One time they were doing something was going on with, and he said, you know what? When you come after New York, you got to go through me. It's like, oh, hometown boy. You know, he has those moments.
Bill Maher almost gets it, I guess.
He's changing his tune.
Ish.
He doesn't want to get in trouble, bro. So he's
So way back, what's her name? Paula Deen got canceled for admitting on the stand that she said the N-word in the 1980s.
I remember that.
And Hormel dropped her like a hot ham. Bill Maher said the N-word to a sitting senator live on HBO, and all he suffered was, I think it was Ice-T or Ice Cube, saying, "You're white, you can't say that word." That's the only
they
thing.
really came down on Paula Deen. They
gave
I
Bill
felt bad
Maher
for
a
her.
pass. Bill Maher got a pass.
He got the
Paula
entrance.
Deen was purposely set up to be fucked with. They set her up on purpose.
Yeah, she was. That was unfair.
Like, a white Southern lady has said the N-word in their life. That's a fact.
And she didn't even say the N-word in context of what she was being sued for. She won the case, but she lost her reputation and her income, I'll say.
Yeah, they set her up.
Yeah. Oh,
But
Senator,
didn't her
I'm a
son continue on like with his cooking show or something?
Might have done.
Yeah. What are you guys watching? Just random.
J Dollar just plays random videos.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nothing special.
J Dollar, my housemate
Don't look
has
at
been
him,
listening
you're
to Ren.
Yeah, I love Ren,
It-
bro.
I know, it's funny. I like heard that one song, the one that you played where he's like talking to himself, like the two personalities or whatever. Hi Ren, I think it's called.
Mhm.
I heard it like coming from his room and I was like, yo, is that Ren? He was like, how do you know Ren? I was like, this guy on YouTube plays it. I didn't know that he was really sick in real life.
Yeah, he's in Mexico right now.
Yeah, I just saw his update. I follow him now. It's interesting.
I don't know if he's sick, or he's sick. He's a sick boy.
He sounds like he gets a lot, like the treatments that he's getting is very similar to stuff that I've had. So it's just some sort of probably rare chronic illness that autoimmune or something that they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Well, no, it is autoimmune. And,
Yeah, it's autoimmune, yeah.
When he was younger, it was diagnosed as he was misdiagnosed as having a psychological disorder.
That happens a lot with fibromyalgia and with the I can't remember the other one.
Well, they were treating him for it, and that's why he got like all sorts of fucked up, and that's basically what like High Ren's about.
Yeah, that's
like,
cool.
yeah.
Like that's cool that he wrote the song about it. You know what I mean? To
Yeah.
describe like that experience.
Yeah, they're probably poisoning his ass so they can get his catalog when he dies.
Probably.
AJ Dollar. So with the supposed Black Monday that we had today, did you jump on any stocks?
No. I
You gotta wait till they go lower, right?
you can call. It's not so.
It's not a Black Monday.
Yeah, we didn't have one. We had a Black Sunday, I guess, if you want to call it that. But really, the amount of money that was moving was negligible. So that was just bots. It wasn't actual.
I did see a couple of stocks go down that I wanted to get my hands on. So when they dropped below like a certain amount, I did pick up a couple of stocks. Like Rumble dropped below $8 from like 11. So I grabbed like 20 stocks of Rumble.
Nice. All I've gotten this month is just Bitcoin still, but I'm still waiting for a little bit lower. I believe we still have one more good downturn, and I hope it comes to fruition.
I cashed out all my crypto when it was high. I needed the money, but I made money at least.
Yeah, I've lost like goddamn since the last 2 months, right? 2 months.
Oh
About that.
gosh, I can't imagine.
A lot. A lot. So it is what it is. Like on Zen alone, I lost like 5,800. So it is what it is. I don't care.
Yeah, when we get that another dip, I'll pick up another 20 stocks of Rumble.
I'm waiting. It's like I told Mike S. Miller about a year ago. I'm waiting for the 2030 time frame to sell. So
What does that mean? Can you
a lot
explain
of-
that?
in
Holding
between-
on to it for 5 more years.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'll continue to accumulate and accumulate and accumulate, and like the only stock that I buy every month, I buy 2 things every month, no matter what: Palantir and Bitcoin. So every month I buy $30 to $50 in Palantir, and every month, no matter what, at the beginning of the month, I buy $30 in Bitcoin. And I've
What's
been doing that for years.
Palantir?
Palantir is Peter Thiel's precog system.
Oh, wow.
And they are mainly military contracts. So it's Peter Thiel's company, but it's ran by a board of directors.
So when I think precog, I think of that movie.
Yeah, it's precog. Precog.
That's crazy.
And then you have like Master, a handful of other companies. There's a lot of things I have my eyes on. BTQ, what is it called? It's BTQQF. They're over the counter still. You can buy them, but it's OTC. That's another AI company that I've been keeping my eye on. And then Circle.
So it's all the new kind of like, that's cool. You're savvy with that, like paying attention to that.
AJ Dollar. Even though my XRP is down a little bit this week, I'm up on my XRP from when I bought it.
Oh, I made money on XRP. That was one of my good.
I wouldn't touch XRP again until it's in the low 2s or low 1s. Because XRP is not even a blockchain. It's a double entry bookkeeping program protocol. It's a program. It's not really a blockchain.
Yeah, but it's just a coin that the Trump is.
It is
the whole reason why I jumped on it was because Trump's making it like an official token of the.
They
United
want
States.
to be a ledger system that's similar to MasterCard. That's what XRP is. They want to be the intermediary for clearinghouse products. They want to, they want to be the clearinghouse. So, I lost Courtney again. She's got the Starlink connection that fucking Seven does. There's a lot of stuff out there that's really worth it. Really, any company that has fundamentals and they drop like 20, 30, 40%, especially if they're a stock, you always want to put a little bit of something in there. It makes sense. Like, the 2008, 2009 financial collapse, Ford dropped to $1 a stock. Could you imagine if you just
Ford
like
was the
$1,000?
only one that didn't accept the bailouts. Is that true? Chrysler and GM accepted the bailouts, but Ford didn't. Is that right?
Ford runs off a different program than a Jeep, Range Rover, Chrysler, and all that. They're like European based. Ford has a different set of rules, and I think one of the benefits that they used during the financial market collapse, they had enough money in their bank accounts and everything to they could justify, because you got to remember, like when companies are dying, people like Disney and whatnot, they do stock buybacks. So they will purposely destroy their company to lower their stocks to buy back stocks at lower price. That's really what the 2008, 2009 financial collapse was about.
Okay, yeah.
Was stock buybacks.
Yeah.
And they used the housing economy to precipitate the endeavor.
Like tulips.
Yeah, that never happened, right? That's a fake story.
What, the tulips?
The tulip thing. It never, ever happened.
Ford's less than $10 right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could you imagine in 2008, 2009 when it dropped less than $1, around 50 cents to $1.50, and you scooped up $1,000 worth of that stock? and then in the peak of 2020, 22, whatever it was, you sell off that $1,000. I think they were like $7, $8, $9, $10 a share.
No, we can imagine, but
So you
I don't think
10x.
any of us did that. Knowing what we know, I don't think any of us back then did that.
Well, I mean, I do it now.
GoPro
That's how I make money.
GoPro is down to 54 cents.
I wouldn't touch GoPro. I wouldn't touch them.
I wouldn't touch
GoPro.
it either.
GoPro is a good product.
I would look at their subsidiaries, their real owners. If you were to play, I mean, stop. You look for the bottom of companies that have fundamental strength, and those are opportunities to get in. So you know, say for example, you're looking at a whole year, and if you know how to chart a little bit, you can set your buy prices, your puts, whatever you want, at a certain price, so you can buy and forget. And that's usually how the standard operations go. You buy low, you sell high, and that's it. But there's certain things, like specifically myself, that I have a financial interest in. Like I am putting money in here because I know this will happen. But for like a lot of things that I've been doing the last couple of years is I've just been building bags, and I am preparing for Jesus's 2,000 year anniversary. That's
what, 33.
Yeah, 2030 to 2033. Like that's my goal. That's when I plan myself.
Jesus was 33 when he died, and he was crucified and rose again. He was 33 years old. Huh?
And it's just a big Taiwan is up for renegotiations. The Shanghai port system.
Oh, that's right. The 33, the 66, and the 99 year contracts are all due.
Yeah, a lot of that's expiring. Yeah.
Right.
And that's when you want to. So they're not going to do the 2008, 2009 financial collapse again, but they will do what they're doing to Trump right now. So Trump applies tariffs. They've been running the market up for like the last 6 years, and not all the market
overvaluing everything.
Yeah, through inflation.
And now that when it collapses, they can say, "Hey, look what you did."
Well, just to give a prime example, over the last 3 days,
they get a reset.
Well, over the last 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, not Monday and now included, but Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they wiped out like almost $8-9 trillion in just those 3 days from the market, right? But in 2008, 2009, when the financial collapse was happening, they used the housing market, which is barely a $3 to $5 trillion market in the United States, and they wiped out about $5 trillion is what they did. And the world was ending. Everything was collapsing. Oh, woe is me. Drama, drama, drama. But we have something that supersedes that by double in the last 3 days, and there's nothing.
I think the issue with what made
profit taking. It's profit taking.
Yeah, but I think what the issue and why it was such a big deal, or at least perceived to be such a big deal in 2008 with the housing market, was like right now, like what's it like? 10% of the people, like 10% of the American population own like 90% of the stocks that are out there, right? Like, you know what I mean? It's usually upper.
Wait, I thought that was the other way around.
No.
That 10% of the people own 90% of the stocks.
That's what I just said.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So it's affecting, like, unless you're like older and like, you know, have a 401k, it might be but like for the most part, it's not really affecting people like me or Jay Dalla or you know, like that. But with 2008, what was going on was like the reason why there was that big bubble was they were literally handing out mortgages to people who had no business getting a mortgage.
Yeah,
So
what I'm
it was
saying
affecting everybody. You know what I mean? Like people were losing their homes and shit. You know, so.
But that was all a front. That was a front. Now, granted, what happened was real. People were losing their houses, but you can only use that type of system every once in a while. So they're not going to crush the housing market again today.
No.
What they'll do instead is they'll crush the market. But really, when they're crushing the market, all they're doing, as you just said, the top 10%, almost 90% of the market, it's just them cashing out. And it's people like myself and a handful of others.
It's leveling the playing field.
Yeah. Well, and what's also interesting is it helps deflate this inflation. So we printed so much money the last couple of years that, like, say for example, this is a random number. This is not a true number. This is not a real number. But they print, so say for example, the dollar is $1. And then after Trump going into Biden, going into Trump again, with all the money that they've printed, the dollar is really worth like 35 cents now. Those aren't real numbers. That's a hyperbolic number I'm using.
Ish.
Yeah, but at the same time, the same gangster attitude that they used in the 2008-2009 financial collapse, that same principle, that same tactic, the very same tactic is being used right now against Trump with the market itself. So, say for example, if Hillary Clinton was president and they tried to do what they're doing right now to Donald Trump, but it was Hillary Clinton, it would be world imploding. Like the world would be imploding. Like that's how much nonsensical dribble and drama and propaganda that they add to their market manipulation. So what actually happened last week on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was double the amount of money lost just on those 3 days than the entire collapse of the financial collapse, when we had to save the banks. But we really weren't saving the banks. We were just giving the banks money so they can pay for the individuals who shorted the housing market. The banks didn't have the money in their accounts to pay all of the individuals who shorted the market. That's why they needed the $800 million from Paulson and our Treasury Secretary at the time. I forget his name. Not Greenspan, but the other guy. And that's all that was. And so they did the same exact thing last week, but there's nothing like the propaganda that used to go on before, even though it's double the amount in just a 3-day period. And so if you add what they've been doing in the 2 or 3 weeks preceding that, when Donald Trump said he was going to institute the tariffs like two weeks ago. So in reality, that $8 to $10 trillion that they wiped out is actually around 10 to 20 trillion dollars. Because if you just include Sunday markets, so Monday is on our Sunday,
yeah,
for the Japanese markets and the Russian markets and all
they
that.
live in the future.
Yeah, and the amount of money that they have wiped out yesterday alone.
What do you think about that? What happened in China, where like they just like flicked the switch and like they just turned everything off?
That's what they had to do today. They had to shut down.
Ground to a halt. If we could not get Chinese goods anymore, would we ground to a halt?
Yeah.
You think so?
You would.
Yeah, we'd find somewhere else to get it.
If they cut off Taiwan shipments, Taiwan
is a whole different ball game.
Yeah, we got no chips for the card. We got no chips for like radios, and they make it all, bro. They make it all.
But, no, I was talking about with the market, like when the fucking Chinese market fucking took a dive.
Everyone took a dive. Everyone.
China more so though, for some reason. I didn't pay too much attention, but for some reason China took a bigger hit.
So what they'll do is they'll cash out. They'll take their profits. They'll do like what Warren Buffett is doing. Warren Buffett, for the last year and a half, he has been selling everything. Because Warren Buffett has a simple principle. Anytime the inflationary measures that are over 100% of the gross domestic product, Warren Buffett historically sells. What Joe Biden did to our gross domestic product versus the bills that he passed, our inflationary measures, our monetary measures and everything are 200% of GDP. So Warren Buffett initially, throughout all his trading history, has sold at 100% of the market.
That's a good job if you can find it.
And so now Warren Buffett publicly in his Berkshire Hathaway company has over $380 fucking million in cash. Over the last
$380 million in cash. Liquidated.
Cash. Piles of cash. And,
where does he keep it all? In his mattress?
Yeah, and Warren Buffett is the only billionaire over the last 30 days who has not lost in excess of $1 billion.
Good for him. Attaboy. Attaboy, Warren.
Over the last 2 weeks, like Portnoy was losing his mind. You know, that pizza guy on Barstool Radio or whatever it's called. Portnoy he was crying.
Oh,
because he's lost so much fucking money.
Well, he gained it all so fast, and then he lost it all so fast.
Yeah. What did you think about when like that like brief rumor this afternoon that like when they were like, oh, Trump's going to put a 90-day pause on tariffs, and the market skyrocketed back up for like a hot minute.
They did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Just so what happens? People they'll like open positions to get ready for Monday. Usually Monday is it's a fake out day. Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday are your trading days. Chair Powell spoke on Friday, and he says he's not going to lower rates. And then they had a planned Q&A thing, like it was a question and answer thing, but everything was completely and utterly planned. It was like a bad movie. And then, but that was the cue to the market to sell, because Powell said he's not changing rates, and that is a sign to Japan, China, Russia, and everyone to fucking sell. And so what they do is they use market makers on the weekend, because you remember the people who run portfolios work Monday through Friday and they take weekends off. And what what they do is they'll use market makers on the weekends to drive down the market, and they use the bots to cash, like they use Wintermule, Binance, NASDAQ. They use the VIX. They use the dollar, the DXY, which is the dollar index, versus the 6-7 other major currencies of the world, and they'll manipulate all of that. And what that'll do, so like when our dollar is dropping, the yuan is increasing.
Yeah.
And so they will sell their stocks as our dollar drops and as their yuan increases. So even though the totality of the market is sinking, they're inflating their currency, they're able to capital, because they, like Europe, the euro, that's fake money. It's fucking fake. And they inflate that money, and then they'll sell on their overpriced market with their overpriced dollar, and then they'll run arbitrage. And then
You
as they run
approve of-
arbitrage with the money makers, they start tanking the market going into Monday.
Do you
and then
approve of Trump's financial policies towards China?
Yeah. So Chair Powell sent out a dove note, a little secret dove note on his speech on Friday to let the market know to sell. And when you run the market outside of its trajectory for 2 or 3 years, and the only way you run the market outside of its trajectory is through inflation. You keep printing money. That money is decided upon through Congress or parliamentary things, and then they give the permission to the central banks. The central banks print promissory notes or treasury bonds, and those bonds get purchased. And when those bonds get purchased, that's when they print the money. And so they're inflating the market, they're making the market go up. And then when the market starts to tank, you have the European markets starting to print extra money. Turkey prints extra money, Rome prints extra money, Paris prints extra money. And as they're driving down the markets with that newly inflated money that they just printed, they will start buying all the stocks that the money makers and everyone are selling.
And then stop printing.
And stop printing. And then all the agreements, because what Donald Trump has established is America is establishing a 10% basis tariff no matter what. So no matter what any country does, even if they put their tariffs to 0, we will still charge them 10%. Because
did he say that? Is that right? Did he say that?
Yeah, he said that tonight. He said that the night before, and he said that the previous night. Because what his end goal is to stop the VAT taxes. He wants to get the post office, because the European Union VAT tax system has made its way into Africa.
That's just a scam. That VAT tax.
Well, it's a tariff.
It is on their own citizens.
Mm-hmm. So if Anthony wants to send a book to someone
they're going to charge Anthony's customer $25 for a VAT tax, a value-added tax.
Yep.
Yeah, well, Anthony's Lightbringer.
On top of the shipping and handling costs that he incurs.
That's some bullshit, bro.
Yeah. And so imagine, so that's for a comic book. So they got VAT taxes for cars. They got VAT taxes for drywall, farming equipment. They actually make it so difficult for us to import vehicles to their countries. Like, the system that they set up is purposely designed for Ford to fail to have their cars be put into European markets.
Yeah, there's
is a Ford. There's a Ford, European Ford. That's
well,
kind
you
of
get what I'm
different
saying.
from
You
our
get what I'm
Ford.
saying. They put these arbitrary rules. They make up these and then the individual company. Let's just say I'm Ford, and not only do you make it impossible for me to pass all your regulations to sell my shit in your country.
That's what we do. 70s.
You also charge the VAT tax, and then you charge a tariff on top of that, and then you the individual companies inside of Europe, the countries inside of Europe also charge their own fee. So Germany has a fee that's on top of that fee. Yeah, and then Paris has a fee that's on top of their VAT taxes and tariffs. So there's like 3 or 4 fees
that the customer has
you gotta pay before your shit even gets off the fucking boat.
Right. So why would you want to buy an American product in Europe? Why would you?
But there is a way for someone like me on my scale to soften the blow on the VAT tax, to make it like in some cases 0, but in other cases like less than $10 or 10 euros or whatever it is that they use.
By devaluing your product, it has no value.
Well,
so you can't tax it.
I don't want to say how, because there's people out there that'll maybe try to use it against me. But yeah, there's a way to do it. But if you get on the scale of somebody like Eric July or Ethan or something, there's no way around it.
Eric July apparently has an agreement with somebody where his international shipping is cheap, is not as expensive as everybody else's. He has a deal with somebody.
Yeah, he may have a printer somewhere in Europe who's going to handle all that.
That prints them in that country.
Probably.
Right. I'm just using his scale as an example, not what he actually does. Like, if he was shipping from here to there, he'd have no way around. Like, his customers would have to pay the VAT tax. There's no way around it.
Yeah. It's insane. Like,
Unless it was
they need to. They got away with it for far too long, and they started in the 90s, and they got really brazen during Obama. And they made Trump. It's their fault. So
Trump made himself. Nobody made Trump. Trump made himself.
The enemies of America made Trump. So
he made himself.
I know what
And
J-Law was saying.
Yeah.
I do too. Like, okay. Trump is the guy who comes along with really new ideas. Like, it's a different way of thinking about things.
Absolutely not.
But he has a way of getting things done.
Almost everything Trump is doing right now are Democratic initiatives started in the 80s and the 90s.
Could be a lot of them, but not
and all those because you remember when Bill Clinton became president. Bill Clinton was like a usurper.
He was pretty good.
And they removed the Glass-Steagall Act, and that allowed the banks to combine their books. And they also started the process of revitalizing the Smith-Mundt Act. And that didn't fall. So it actually took two presidents. You actually had to go through George Bush Jr. after the Patriot Act, and then you had the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. So it was the Glass-Steagall Act. The Glass-Steagall allowed the banks to combine their books into one. And the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which was initiated by Clinton but finalized in the Obama era, that allowed the United States government to propagandize its American citizens. So the Glass-Steagall Act started in the early 70s.
What?
Yeah.
For the ones ensuring the job
The Glass-Steagall
always
Act,
gets done,
or excuse
and
me, the
ones wearing
Smith-Mundt
many hats.
Act started in the
American
70s.
government
Industrial
not
supplies and real-time product availability.
Yeah, the original
propagandize their citizenry.
Yeah, the original Smith-Mundt Act was created so the federal government can use USAID, which is a United States fund. And it's not U.S. aid.
Right. AID, which is
AID, which is similar. Well, it's similar to the Interagency Development Bank, the IAD, and through the Smith-Mundt Act, because you remember, like, the CIA went from the operations of strategic services in the Army, and then it became the CIA in the late 80s.
The U.S. Agency for Internal Development.
Yeah. Interagency Development, which coincidentally ran out of Atlanta, Georgia, which is where the Tiefelds, the Gatlin family, the Gatlin gun family, the Gatlins, and whatever Chris Ray's wife's mother's name is, and all those guys.
USAID seems like an altruistic and even benign sort of thing. It's principle
It was Army.
to extend assistance to countries recovering from disasters.
It was
trying
Army.
to escape poverty
Shut
and
up.
engaging
No, it's not at all
in
what it was.
democratic reforms.
No. So the Army was metastasizing into a federal institution that like works as a federal institution. They were kind of like moving out of the Army and turning into the federal government, right? That's what the Army was turning into. The Army Corps of Engineers, the Operations and Strategic Services, the that one thing that ended up creating the NSA, whatever that thing was called before it became the NSA, the National Security Council, the thing before the National Security Council, NSC. That was being institutionalized in this Smith, because remember Project Mockingbird and all that was coming out around this era, and through Project Mockingbird and all of their studies, they decided that because they're getting so good with setting up these institutions that they would start propagandizing their own United States population. And you had Bill Clinton kind of really doing some interesting things, and it didn't really work out to his advantage because the Europeans wanted global monetary decisions to be returned back to the Europeans, and they weren't getting the things done that they needed to be getting done. So they did 9/11, and 9/11, and so 9/11 jump started like the globalist takeover, right? And they were able to move all monetary decisions outside of New York, and they moved it back to Malta, and that one place in Italy, and another place in Paris. And then they created the Patriot Act. And then after George Bush Jr., you had Obama come in, and that's when you had the Smith Modernization Act. And that's how it all worked out. And then you were supposed to have Hillary Clinton be president.
Oh, thank God.
And then you were supposed to have Paul Ryan. Remember, the Ryan family are the ones who created Yale. They're the ones who gave all of their property that they owned in like the New Haven and the Connecticut regions. That's where Yale sits today. The people who made Axios, the Axios newspaper company.
No, that's just know the Gettys.
And boom shakalaka.
So
after Ryan, you probably would have had like Kevin McCarthy, or you would have had that one guy from Virginia who left early on, and then that would have been the end of America.
Huh? But it wasn't.
Nope.
Because here we are.
Yep. They would have passed
249 years later.
They would have passed the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, the TPP.
Standing astride the globe. Fuck with us and find out.
What's interesting about the TPP is if, say, for example, if we created a law in the United States and the law that we created messed with the profit and loss statement of like France or
Fuck 'em.
somewhere in Italy, the country that the corporation resides in would have been able to sue America and American lawmakers
Yeah, how can you
for
sue
making
a country?
Yeah, that's what the Trans-Pacific Partnership was. It would have allowed corporations to sue countries for making laws that hurt their P&L.
Fuck them.
And
Oh shit! I hate to cut you off, bro. I do have to jump off. I just wanted to pop on and say hi. I got to work in the morning.
No, you're good, bro.
Bye. Hi.
This is a conversation of randomness.
Yeah, no, I
Later.
just didn't want to cut you off, but I apologize. But yeah, good seeing you guys. I will catch you guys next time
Later.
I'm around. Ish, yeah.
Later, Gator. Bro, we were like this close to being fucked in the ass. So
By
close.
whom? Who were?
By Europe.
Oh, by Europe.
Fucking Europe,
yeah.
bro.
Yeah, good thing for the revolution. Hooray! We don't have to pay attention to them anymore because we told King George to fuck off.
King George.
Was it King George? The revolution?
King George says, every drop of my blood is German. I think that's what he said.
So was Queen Elizabeth was German too, I think.
Yeah, they're Saxe-Coburg.
Yeah, the one that just died. The one that's now, what's his name? Philip. He's not going to live much longer, and it's going to be William.
Are you talking about Charles?
Yeah, Charles. That's what I said, not Philip. That's his brother.
Yeah, and remember William.
Charles does not look well. He really, I think this guy really hoped his mother would die sooner so that he could be king longer. But he's going to be king for a very short time because he's not well and he's going to die soon. And then William is going to take over.
Do you know William, Charles, and what's William's son? What's his name?
William has a son. Well, I don't even know what his wife's name is.
The firstborn. Anyway, they're not allowed to be in the same areas now because he's of age.
You have to keep them apart in case something happens.
Because he's the heir to the throne. So
yeah, right. Designated survivor, the spare. Yeah.
That's crazy, bro.
Because you have to have a designated survivor when the president goes to deliver the State of the Union in Congress. Everybody who's sort of important is there in that one single space. So you have to have a designated survivor, right? Somebody who's along the line of whatever. So Prince Harry thinks he's just a spare, like he's a spare kidney or spare lung or maybe even a liver, part of my liver, if William needs it.
No, he's the typical bastard son of the royal family.
Right. Is he Charles's son, right?
No,
or is
absolutely not.
Somebody else's son.
Yeah.
The first one, William is Charles's son.
Yes, he's
Yeah.
So this the Phoenician Scheme came out today, or the trailer did, and it's a Benicio del Toro film. And I want you to check this out because we're about to bounce. I want to go to bed before Heather gets up for work.
Okay.
So I'm at least laying in the bed for 30 minutes before she gets
Right. Fuller. Fuller.
All right, so check out this great movie.
Tom Hanks.
At this moment, rescue workers are laboring to recover and identify the remains of Zsa Corda, international businessman, maverick in the fields of armaments and aviation, among the richest men in Europe. This was Corda's 6th recorded airplane crash. He is survived by 10 children, 9 boys, 1 nun, his daughter Liesl.
I've appointed you sole heir to my estate.
Oh, no.
Which you may come into sooner rather than later.
Why? It's been 6 years since our last meeting.
I have my reasons.
Which are what?
My reasons? I'm not saying. I'm saying I'm not saying. Corda Land and Sea Phoenician Infrastructure Scheme. My most important project of my lifetime.
Our objective, disrupting, obstructing, impeding, crippling Corda's enterprise in any manner possible.
Get the hand grenades. Today, tonight, and tomorrow, we rendezvous with every Titan and pretend we agree what we already agree. But in fact, we don't. We can't. Call it.
Heads. Heads.
That's dumb. That's dumb.
Is this supposed to be here? It was under the lunch trolley.
Oh dear, who shot you?
Tara's from out of town. Help yourself to a hand grenade.
You're very kind.
Could you imagine falling in love with a man like me, by the way, hypothetically?
You're drunk on 3 beers.
Why are you shooting my ceiling?
This is a robbery on behalf
I understand that. I'm asking about my ceiling. You idiots are destroying a magnificent nightclub.
One thing you'll never know because you can't. The truth. I suppose I'm moved by this absurd performance.
I recognize this assassin.
Come now.
Suicide pedal.
Where's the father? Take this miserable sin into the company.
Wes Anderson, and Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks' name popped up a lot.
Yeah, I don't care.
He's a
He's trying to get his last couple of movies out
before he dies.
before he can't act anymore.
Yeah.
Before he's at Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we want to talk about?
Nope. It's been good talking to you, though, Gaydollar.
Yeah, it was a
I enjoyed
decent nonsensical stream, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Where? Okay. Bye.